Welcome to Surrey Decides Question Time 2023. Please welcome to the stage your VP voice, Megan Simmons.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Surrey Decides Question Time. Are you excited? Glad to hear it, because you're in for a treat tonight. Over the next 3 evenings, you'll have the opportunity to hear from the candidates running in this year's Surrey Decides elections. This is their chance to tell you about their ideas and why you should vote for them on Tuesday evening when voting opens. Our debates will be chaired by our team of students who have put themselves forward as volunteers to help students make informed voting decisions. As the audience watching in person or online, you will have the opportunity to ask questions from the floor via the Twitter hashtag using Surrey Decides. You will see some of our online questions appearing via our Twitter wall in the room this evening. Being up on stage as a candidate isn't easy, I can tell you that for a start. And although we encourage you to ask questions and scrutinise our candidates as much as possible, we want to remind you that any harassment of any kind, whether that's towards our students running or our chairs, will not be tolerated and will be dealt with via disciplinary action. Without further ado, let's watch the first debate of the evening.
Please welcome to the stage your chair for the Support Zone debate, Denny Addis.
Good evening, everyone. Are we all ready for our first debate of Question Time 2023? I hope you're all excited. Our first debate tonight is for the Support Zone. So can we please welcome our candidate?
Please welcome to the stage your candidates for the Support Zone.
So before we start, there are 3 other candidates for this role who could not attend today. Frey, Roshna and Namrata. Their manifestos, if they've chosen to submit one, can be found on the ballot. So hello Isabel, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So before we get into your manifesto, could you first, just in 30 seconds, introduce yourself and tell us why you're running to be a member of the Support Zone?
So I'm Isabel and I'm running for Support Zone because I know the value of a friendly face who is determined to make life better for the students around them. I have been in need of that face in the past and now I want to be that face, tackling issues such as accessibility, well-being and community to try and make the University of Surrey the most inclusive and supportive that it can be.
Thank you so much. So I've had a look at your manifesto, and one of your manifesto points is about introducing peer support programs within societies and academic departments. Having been a well-being champion yourself, how would this peer support program differ from the existing Wellbeing Champion program?
So the Wellbeing Champion program is obviously pitched in a certain way so that wellbeing champions can give general kind of wellbeing support and advice to students. And that is obviously a really, really useful thing. I've been in that role because I believe in the power of having that as a resource. But there would be something about a peer support program where, in my mind, it's kind of where older students in a similar kind of course or department mentor younger students. So this can be done through departmental societies, this can be done within the departments and schools themselves. And I think, you know, there is that, that additional resource there that targets the academic well-being because, you know, not only can you ask for help if, you know, you need support with one of your modules, although that would not be necessarily the official format for that because there's also the lecturers and, you know, the postgraduate researchers in your labs and similar. But I think it would be, you know, an invaluable tool for older students to be able to share their wisdom with younger students in terms of things like obviously sticking within the rules of academic integrity, but advice on stuff like coursework, on module choices, because that's a huge thing that students don't know about. They don't have the direct one-to-one student-to-student knowledge of what it's like to take a particular module later on in their course. And this could be the kind of scheme that might address that, because you get that feedback that's outside of the official context of, the sessions led by your lecturers, your academics. You get a kind of a broader range of access to information about your course, because ultimately the course is the crux of the reason why students are here at Surrey, and I want to help make that sort of just as easy to navigate and as well supported as possible for them.
Brilliant, thank you. So kind of more of a mentoring scheme than the sort of existing?
Yeah, definitely. I think, there's certainly a place for something like a peer support scheme alongside the Wellbeing Champion scheme, because it's providing support in a slightly different way with a slightly different purpose, essentially. So I think the two would complement each other really well, rather than trying to replace the existing Wellbeing Champion scheme.
Brilliant, thank you. So we've got time for another manifesto question, if that's all right?
Yeah, of course.
So you are campaigning for improved accessibility awareness around campus for students with additional mobility requirements. Yeah. What specific changes would you like to see, and how do you plan to tackle these?
Well, in an ideal world, there would be a significant overhaul in terms of accessibility. So, more ramps, more multi-purpose elevators, because some of the elevators are too small for stuff like mobility scooters, which is an issue people don't really talk about. More automatic doors, but I recognise this is a long-term project that will require a lot of capital. I think what's important to do in the more immediate future is to produce resources for students with these needs. And this is not just in terms of students with mobility requirements, but it's the example I'm using because it's something, quite close to my heart and something that's affected me personally. But, they say there are maps and there are apps to help you around campus if you need to use level access routes. But the feedback from students is that those don't work. They lead you to doors that are locked. The maps are incredibly cryptic and hard to read. So we need to have a complete overhaul of these resources and make them available to all students, advertise them to students coming into the university so that they know they're available and they know where to find these things. And we need to make sure that lecturers and societies and everyone is aware of these problems, because they can affect all students, and students shouldn't have to go begging for help just to find a bathroom that's accessible to them. We really need to publicise this information, because it's there. These routes are there if you know where to look, but it's the if you know where to look that's the problem. So that's what I would like to do, is to see these resources made and delivered with a a big public campaign, so that students are able to be independent and they're able to get where they need to go without it, becoming some, intellectual maze challenge. That would be my sort of vision for accessibility.
Amazing, thank you. So I've got another one for you. What do you think is the biggest contributing factor to poor mental well-being for students at the moment?
Well, I think it sounds obvious to say, but is stress. And that sounds like a simplistic answer, but let me elaborate. So stress is something that faces all of us. A lot of people face it every day, and it comes from a number of sources. What I think is really challenging is that people aren't always given the resources to manage this stress properly. They aren't, shown the diverse ways in which you can actually try and pull yourself back from being in a place where you're really, really overly stressed. Because I think students face the challenge where they are facing a difficult time socially, academically. It feels like an insurmountable challenge. And oftentimes they're, are likely to just want to give up because they don't see a way out of that situation. That's, where you get academic burnout. That's where you get people dropping out of their course, is because they don't see an alternative way to navigate the situation. And so I think, something that's really important is to increase the resources available to students to try and give them alternatives to suggest different ways to manage themselves academically. Not trying to at all incite blame or suggest the student is at fault in any way, but just to say, there are different ways of managing your studies, there are different ways of managing your extracurricular activities and the social side of your life, and just really promote well-being in that way, because I think it's too often that students feel that there isn't another option and that the only route is for them to give up, and I think that's something that we could really tackle.
Yeah. Brilliant, thank you. So, with that in mind, which of your manifesto points do you think will have the biggest impact on student well-being, and why?
That is very hard to answer because they are, in a way, part and parcel of each other.
Yes.
Personally, from my experience, I think the avenue of accessibility is a significant challenge, because students with certain health conditions, certain disabilities, or however they choose to identify that kind of issue that they're facing, it has a huge impact on every part of their day-to-day life, particularly their studies. And I think we need to make sure they're supported as well as possible, because otherwise there's just a huge imbalance between students who may face fewer challenges and students who face more, and we need a level playing field so everyone can succeed as well as possible during their time here. I think all the issues are very important, and every individual student will rank them differently, so please do not
Everyone's got different
yeah,
priorities,
but
everyone's got
please do
different
not
needs.
think I'm saying that one is less important than the other. But if push came to shove and I have
Yes.
to answer the question, for me, I would say accessibility is what we need to address most, because it, in my mind, places the biggest barrier between students and achieving their potential.
Yes. Thank you. Brilliant. So, one last general one. So which of your manifesto points do you think will be the most challenging to implement? And do you have any ideas about overcoming these challenges? Yeah.
I think something I foresee as a challenge is my manifesto point to try and increase communication between students and staff, particularly in matters of well-being, accessibility, inclusivity. Trying to have a channel open at all times for students to be able to communicate with staff and convey their needs. Because one thing I envisioned for this was that it could be done anonymously.
Yes.
Because I think that would empower so many students to be able to actually speak up without fear of being penalised or judged, which I know, several friends of mine, and I imagine it affects a number of people. They, have not been able to speak up in the past because they worry about having that face-to-face conversation. Obviously, the issue, though, with having an anonymous reporting service or an anonymous feedback service is the ability for it to be misused.
Yes.
I think certainly lecturers and academics have commented that with the MEQ system that it's been problematic, because some students give genuine helpful feedback, some just use it as a way to abuse the lecturers, often for things that aren't their fault. So I think that would certainly be a challenging thing to implement, but I think if we trialled it slowly, made sure we had a good kind of administrative oversight on it, to make sure students were using it properly. And
So would this be sort of well-being specific, or just kind of a general feedback? board?
I'd like to think of it as well-being
Yes.
specific. As if a student isn't having their adjustments met, if they're
Yes.
having problems with the content, if they're facing stress or problems academically, I think there's a lot lecturers can do that they often don't, specifically in terms of adjustments and well-being. So it would be a platform for that, but we need to make sure it was introduced carefully and kind of overseen for the at least the starting phases, so that it wasn't misused.
Brilliant, thank you. Well done, you're doing great. I know it's tough to be up here, especially when you're the only candidate, so well done so far. Just to finish, What would you say is your biggest student support passion? What drove you to apply for this role? What do you want to see changed?
I think what drove me to apply for this role was seeing how many students didn't have a voice or felt they didn't have a voice. I have been in a few situations now with the university where I have had a problem that, someone isn't meeting my adjustments, they're not meeting my needs, and I've had to really fight my corner for that. And I've been lucky that I personally am quite good at speaking up for myself. I'm quite confident in that regard. And I also have a support team behind me in the form of my friends and my parents, particularly my mum, who will come in and yell at anyone who is not giving me what I need. Bless her, she's absolutely lovely. But then I stop and think, and I realise not everyone has that. Not everyone has the confidence to speak up for themselves. Not everyone has, necessarily the support behind them to empower them to do so. And that's what I want to change. I want students to feel empowered to speak up for what they want, what they need. And in the meantime, I want to be that voice for them. I want, to be the one standing up and say, hey, actually, we need this and it's within our rights and you're going to give it to us.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much for coming, Isabel. You've been amazing.
Thank you.
It's been lovely to talk to you. Just a reminder that there are 3 other candidates running for this position. So if they've submitted a manifesto, you can see those online. But thank you very much and stay tuned for the next debate.
Oh, take me away, unveil my lies, but I swear there's no skeletons in my closet. She sleeps in my bed, she sits in my desk, she tells me her wildest fantasies of life. Something about this makes me feel so good, yeah, it feels so good, yeah, it feels so. Something about this makes me feel so good, yeah, it feels so good, yeah, it makes me feel alive. Something about this makes me feel so good, yeah, it feels so good, yeah, it feels so. Something about this makes me feel so good, yeah, it feels so good, yeah, it makes me feel alive. Something about this makes me feel so good, yeah, it feels so good, yeah, it feels so. Something about this makes me feel so good, yeah, it feels so good, yeah, it makes me feel alive.
Please welcome to the stage your chair for the VP support debate, Ellen Parry.
Hello everyone. Good evening everyone. How are we doing today? Good stuff. Right, so I'm Ellen. I'm chairing your first Vice President debate of Surrey Decides this year. Are we excited? I conveniently dropped my paper on the floor, so I'm just going to get that. Right, so Vice President support is a full-time officer. It's a paid position, and we've got 2 candidates running. Let's welcome to the stage.
Please welcome to the stage your candidates for VP support.
Right, let's crack on. So I'll let you get ready before I hand you. Perfect. So you've got 30 seconds to introduce yourself and tell us why you're running. Liam, I'm going to start with you if that's okay.
Yeah.
So when you're ready, go ahead.
Of course. Well, hello everyone, my name is Liam, and this time on this very stage last year, I said the words, I am not done yet. And I'm still not done. There's more I want to do. My time here has been defined by my engagement with support services, the experience I've gained, the conversations I've had. I think VP support is the perfect way to use all of that and make active change. But I don't want you to vote for me because you know me, because you recognize me. I want you to vote for me because of the passion I have for this university and the love I have for its students. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. And Sam, over to you, same question.
Hiya. Hi, my name is Sam. I'm a final year bioscience student. My particular passion is freshwater ecology, which, if you don't know, means I get paid to go pond dipping. As a twice elected course rep and a student who's accessed many of the support services, I think you could describe me as an academic's worst nightmare. I intend to use, apologies. My manifesto is centered around lived experience and building on existing university infrastructure. As someone that's benefited from union and university support services, but also has found that some of these services fall short, I have a lot to say. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, we'll crack on to some general questions, then we'll go into manifesto questions. No surprises, we'll keep it simple. So, Sam, I'm going to start with you this time. So in your opinion, what is the best campaign led by the Support Zone this year and why?
Oh, very controversial question. This is a personal favourite of mine. The current VP support, Oriana, has done a fab job, in my opinion, on Shag Days, which, if you are unfamiliar with the concept, stand for Sexual Health Advice and Guidance. I attended the most recent event, I think about a week ago, and yeah, it's a topic that I'm particularly passionate about and again, related to some of my sort of campaign points about making sure that we are tackling the stigma and taboo around talking about sex and relationships.
Okay, thank you. And over to you. Oh, we can cut first. Perfect. And over to you, Liam.
Wow, that's really hard, but thinking about it, I've got to say the Period Poverty Project. It's the work of several VPs, and it's something that's really come to fruition this year, and it's been fantastic. And on the surface level, looks quite simple, right? You just stick a bunch of products in certain places around the campus, bish, bash, bosh, done. But no, the work that goes into something as simple as that has had such a long, wide-reaching effect. On the coach today, back from Blackpool, it was a conversation we had. Everyone saying, yeah, really glad they had that at the library. I was suffering without it. Those small things have such a massive change, and it is those small things that, as VP support, we can access and make an active and long-lasting, permanent change.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to dive into some manifesto questions now. So Sam, I'm coming to you first. So your manifesto mentions inclusive advice and resources on Shag Days. You just touched on it, but I want you to elaborate. So the current VP support held an LGBTQ Shag Day last week. So can you please elaborate on your vision for your manifesto point of increased LGBTQ inclusion? So what would it look like?
Yeah, so building on the existing infrastructure that's already there, the way Shag Days work, often a stall outside of the Hive, for example, some of you may have seen that around. So it's information and resources to do with sexual health, whether it's contraception, family planning, STI screenings, and basically what I want to do is put a special emphasis not only just on like the LGBT specific event that was held a few days ago, but also making sure that all of those events are sort of more representative of the student body. So more specifically, a couple of things that I can think of off the top of my head, for example, more resources on sort of HIV prevention, PrEP, and the U=U campaign. In addition to that, perhaps in terms of like discussions or some kind of course-based thing, that really discussions of navigating online spaces such as Tinder and Grindr and really facing the reality of dating and sex in the 21st century. For example, I would say sort of discussions around sexting, for example, would be really relevant. I believe the current VP Sports implemented a sort of mandatory consent course, for example, for onboarding students, which is absolutely fantastic. And in relation to the previous year about making campus safer, how can we do that? Well, discussions, including sort of sexting and navigating online spaces, are key when it comes to consent.
Thank you. All right, Sam, I think you've read my mind because I'm going to ask about the consent course now. So the consent course, as you've mentioned, is meant to be compulsory. But I did some research, I sent some emails, and I found out that this academic year, there's only 957 students who've actually taken all modules of the consent course. So that's about 6% of all students at this university. So Liam, I'm going to come to you first. So can you tell me if you've got any ideas of how you would increase this number over the year?
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? I mean, to my knowledge, we don't really have much of a punitive system in place. When there was this debate this time last year, something we said was, back when there was COVID times and we had all of these tests of have you done your COVID training, things like that, you'd get bombarded by emails saying you need to be taking this, you need to be on top of it. At the moment, we have the weekly, monthly emails that might say, by the way, guys, we've got this compulsory thing that you should really be doing, but, you know, if you don't do it, I'm under the impression that as time goes on later in the semester, we're looking to, the support zone, rather, are looking to think about how we can really push this towards the end of the year and make it so that when we start next year, we're ready to go from day one, right? But it's hard. I really think we need to be pressing it, maybe not a punitive action, but really trying to reinforce that it needs to be done. Reinforce the positives. Don't focus on the negatives, but focus on why we do it. We do this because people don't feel safe going to clubs, because they don't know how to handle these situations. We're doing this for a benefit, right? And I'd like to think that if we sell those benefits to enough people, then surely they'd care to take the, hour it takes to do this?
Thank you. Okay, so Sam, same question to you.
Would you be able to repeat the
I
question?
can indeed. So the consent course is meant to be compulsory, as you've already told me. But I did some research, and there's only about 6% of all students at this university who have actually completed this course. So have you got any ideas of how you would increase this number as your time as VP support?
Yeah, in discussions with members of the support zone, for example, the topic of consent actually, in relation to my manifesto points, came up. And the difficulty of engagement. As a course rep, in very general terms, it's an ongoing issue in terms of providing services and support for students, and actually the uptake and how we engage students and meet them halfway. For me, I would be very interested in sort of creating a very sort of public and very broad campaign, perhaps involving VP activity, Team Surrey and Varsity, to make certain topics, you know, for example, around consent and sexting and sort of relevant topics to today's student body, making that very visible. And I think perhaps, making that visible in rubrics. And again, sort of anecdotally, a lot of students in sports party quite hard. And I think that would be a great start to get, say, societies and sporting teams involved.
Okay, thank you. Brilliant. So we're going to take a question from the floor. I believe our current VP support has a question. So if we could get the magic microphone, that would be very helpful. She's just at the front here. There you go.
That's so bright. Hello. You're both doing great. I had a look at your manifestos when they were released, and I saw that both of you have some things that I'm already doing or working on. I know that you've already spoken about the shag days, but how exactly are you planning on doing it differently? So, for example, you've mentioned the consent course that I'm already working on a bespoke course for Surrey, and you mentioned the centralized support services, but this year, what we've managed to do is if you go on the union, there's a how to get support button, and then when you click on it, there's all the support there. So what exactly are you two planning on doing differently than what I've been doing?
Perfect. Who wants to start?
Yeah.
Sorry to start that from you, Sam. Yeah, great question. And the reality of this job that is something that I don't feel is publicised very well is the fact that you inherit it from someone. It's not that I'm going to come into it and I'm going to have something completely brand new to bring to the table for absolutely everything, because you've done brilliant work. Larry, she's done brilliant work, and Aaron, they've done brilliant work, and it can go on and on and on. What's the point if you drop it? The idea is that you build it. You mentioned consent course specifically, and yes, you're going to be working on this towards the end of the semester. I didn't say it on my manifesto just to claim credit for something you've done, not at all. But the idea is it's something proactive. There will have to be meetings next year on how we design it. Something like the website, well, okay, sure, we have something good right now, but when it comes to it, what new is going to come up that we need to be reflexive and adapt? In this role, we will take our own personalities, we'll get what matters to us and build upon what you brought. So I hope that sort of builds the right picture of, I'm not trying to take things, I'm trying to take what you have started and bring it to whatever the next year brings us.
Brilliant. Okay, same question to you, Sam.
Yeah, and on the topic of sort of centralising support service information on the and university websites for students that perhaps aren't as familiar with the resources, I think the union already does a particularly good job under the, I think it's the Get Help Now tab. They've broken down various support resources, often in terms of themes. I think that layout is working particularly well. One of my manifesto points that very much overlaps with centralising that support service information is creating comprehensive support sections for LGBTQ students, which I believe is already starting to be implemented, disabled and neurodivergent students, and students from the global majority. That, for example, on the topic of mental health, I have used the Centre for Wellbeing service, and one of the things I wasn't aware of until I started using the service already, that there are LGBT-specific advisors. Although, yes, the topic of mental health would come under the mental health tab, it's understanding that really different subjects and identities very much overlap. And in terms of like the Pulse service, the Pulse survey data, that it's very clear that although we already have so many fantastic support options, students are either unaware of them or unsure whether or not they meet their particular needs. For example, the disability and neurodiversity team are absolutely fantastic. I've had sort of really great support from them personally as a student, and I was unaware until I started talking to them. They offer sort of weekly workshops, both a remote and an in-person one, which in addition to, yes, being themed and with the intention of supporting students, is also a great source of support and community. And it's understanding that in addition to what we've already got, it's making sure that this help is very simple to understand what's being offered, who is eligible, which again, the union in particular is leading the charge with that. And then targeting particular populations of students, for example, LGBTQ students, in addition to the Centre for Wellbeing, perhaps talking to the chaplaincy service, for example, about supportive religious congregations that for many students, faith can provide such a great source of support and community.
Brilliant. Thank you, both of you. Okay, we're going to dive back into manifesto questions. So, Liam, I'm coming to you first. So, students need to have studied for at least 2 terms in order to be eligible for the University Guarantor Scheme, and this was set up after conversations between the university and VP support. How do you intend to make the scheme fit for purpose so it can cater for international students or February starters that wouldn't usually be able to use the scheme?
Yeah, well, some degree of empathy and reflexivity is absolutely needed. So the guarantor scheme being there, that if you are wanting to find a house and you're an international student, or for any other reason you can't secure one, the university can act as a guarantor. Great idea, but exactly there. You need to be here for 2 semesters. Yeah, it's a tricky one, and it's there for a reason, right? It's there because there are only so many people they can be a guarantor for, and you don't want to overwhelm the service. It's about thinking, why do we need this? What is the reason behind needing these 2 semesters? Is it a trust of character? Is there another way we can get that information, as part of the onboarding process? Can we have those conversations of why you're struggling to get a guarantor? Let's meet, let's discuss that. I feel like 2 terms in particular is the biggest problem I have because it estranges the people who need it the most, right? The people who have just got here. And I think there are more important metrics we could be using to make that distinction rather than simply having existed here for a sufficient amount of time.
Okay, thank you. All right, so a question for both of you now. Sam, I'll come to you first. What is one element of each other's manifesto that you really like and would consider using?
That is an excellent question. So first and foremost, word counts on campaign materials are extremely limited, particularly sort of Liam's discussion about a Surrey-specific consent course, building on the work of Oriana and other members of the support zone. It's not specifically listed on the manifesto, but in personal discussions with Liam, because of his involvement with Rubik's, publicising the work that Rubik's is already doing and using that environment to further support students, making them feel safe on campus. For example, I believe kind of bottle stoppers and other kind of drinks caps are offered. I can't say I've frequented Rubik's very much, but in discussions with other students, they aren't necessarily aware of that often the university and union does a fab job at providing these services, but maybe not about publicising them and making sure that students are aware of them. And in discussions with Liam, sort of discussions around consent, he's already very much plugged into the support zone network, and again, sort of with the environment with Rubik's.
Thank you. And same question to you, Liam.
Well, I very cleverly printed it so small I can't read it. But the thing that makes all of his manifestos fantastic is that it is personal. And one of those biggest things for me is, as you mentioned tonight on stage, the idea that we should have things specific to LGBT students, things specifically for internationals. Make the support services we have, how we describe it on the union website, for example, devised specifically for certain situations because their needs are different. It's a fantastic idea. One of the biggest things that came up from the International Student Survey that we were successfully able to run was the idea that the materials weren't relevant. There was no consideration for intersectionality, really. The specificity of, sure, you might be having the same financial problems as me, that's great, but the fact that you don't have a secure housing situation, that makes it so much worse. So by having your materials, by having that idea of making sure our support is targeted specifically to certain groups as best we can, as reflexively as we can, as informed as we can, as you say, again, from personal discussions, of speaking to those groups, I think that is absolutely the way forward. And whatever happens, that needs to happen in the union.
Thank you. Okay, so Sam, I've got a manifesto question for you now. So on your manifesto, you mentioned more outreach events to clarify what the support zone offers students. So can you elaborate specifically on what kind of events you think these would be and how it will be different to previous outreach that the zone has done before?
Yep, absolutely. And first and foremost, student engagement and outreach is very much an ongoing topic of interest for the union and the university. Each candidate would bring something very different and unique to that role. For me, it's basically putting myself out of my comfort zone, engaging with Rubik's. If it means dressing as Steve the Stag and shaking my ass, I will absolutely do that. That often the resources can be quite technical, and it can be like, oh, you know, pop into lectures, and this is what the union does. For onboarding students and students arriving in accommodation, you have those handouts. I have to admit, I don't always use those, even as someone that frequents the union. It's basically making sure we're very plugged into the student population. I don't have specific events, as you suggested, in mind, but really listening to students and finding out what works for them. Related to one of my campaign points about hybrid learning, feel a bit silly mentioning this on stage, but I ran a quick poll just to see, you know, people engaging with my campaign material, how they felt about how they felt about hybrid learning, and basically asked them smash or pass. And that got so much more engagement than just sort of maybe perhaps more formal discussions. And it's like, yeah, it's surprising to me because it's actually given me much the same perspective as the university, that it's very much divided between 50-50. Students either absolutely love it or hate it.
Okay, thank you. Brilliant. Right, a question for both of you. Liam, I'll come to you first. So, engagement with volunteers across the union is falling, so that's across all zones. And considering support zone runs services such as Welfare Watch, Nightline and Student Minds, can you tell me how you would look to increase engagement with volunteers across the support zone?
Yeah. I mean, look at tonight. Only one absolute champion on stage speaking as fantastically as they did. There is this crisis at the moment, and I struggled through it with Nightline as coordinator as we come out. And it's true for every one of them, we're really struggling. An idea we've had is as our resources are limited, try pooling them together. So I speak about having this meeting with the coordinators or service leaders of the main support groups and think about how we can use our publicity volunteers to get out there, to be better. Why have these distinct groups are acting of their own volition, complete identity, when we are all one service. Maybe scrap the different publicity teams altogether and just have a student service publicity team. Really try and hone it together so we have one unified presence that we can get more people engaged with. Why pick which service you want to support and instead just be champions? You could say very fairly that is that not what the support zone should be for? No, focus specifically on publicity. Empower more students to be representatives of these services, even if they're not too familiar with each one individually, just to embody that, to go out to lectures, exactly as you said, Sam, to take those steps out, branch out as much as we can, and work together rather than separately.
Okay, thank you. And same question to you, Sam.
Would you be able to repeat the question,
Indeed.
please?
So engagement with volunteers across the union is falling. Considering a support zone runs services such as Welfare Watch, Nightline and Student Minds, can you tell me how you would look to increase engagement with volunteers through the support zone?
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you that may not be aware, I'm a twice elected course rep. And this year I was the only candidate that ran. I got 100% of the votes, which is the one thing that's on my CV. And the difficulty is student engagement across the university. It is difficult. In terms of how we would go about this, for example, I would say mixing it with the employability and careers service. For example, some students may be participating, such as myself, in the employability award, and basically incentivizing some of these roles that students may not have considered, but when it's giving them something to put on their CV saying, oh, you know, I've volunteered for sort of Nightline or Welfare Watch, Student Minds, that it's really opening their eyes to the different opportunities that, you know, I'm very passionate about. You know, a lot of the particular support groups the Support Zone offers about sort of Surrey volunteering, but knowing those are contributing to something that employers specifically are looking towards may be a way to help with student engagement.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, so I've got a follow-up question to the one I just asked you. Sam, I'll come to you first. It's quite a long one. So considering the cost of living crisis currently, we may find that students have less capacity to take on these voluntary positions, so the union relies on quite a lot of volunteers. Can we realistically rely on people's altruism anymore, considering this? And how do you build a sustainable peer support project considering that?
That is a very relevant and timely topic. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure. I would first of all sort of rely on my peers and the network within the support zone. Would it be possible to repeat the question? Sorry, a little bit flustered.
So can we realistically rely on people's altruism anymore to run all of these support services by volunteers? And can we build a sustainable peer support project using volunteers for the foreseeable future?
In terms of altruism, I would say that students are just as passionate as they've ever been, but using myself as an example, students are so exhausted. By the time they've got their lectures and independent study out the way and looking at the pulse surveys, people are too busy to engage in the rest of student life, relevant to sort of my manifesto and actually many of the points candidates have made about sort of tackling stress, hybrid learning, making sure that people can study and engage with university in a way that suits them. The inclusion of sort of hybrid teaching, which is something the university is very much sort of looking at the moment, and accessible events being sort of online or streamed, basically reducing those costs, reducing the sort of need to come to campus for students that it's very difficult, frees up much more time to engage, whether that's going clubbing in Rubik's, volunteering with these student services, looking at employability and careers, for example.
Okay, thank you. And same question to Liam. I can repeat it if you need me to.
I'm okay, thank you. I would love to look you and everyone here in the eyes and say altruism is enough. It breaks my heart, but I don't think it is anymore. It's really hurt me that it is this way, but exactly as you say, cost of living is a massive thing, right? If we're trying to find as much time as we can to get a part-time job to support our existence on this campus, then when are we going to find time to spend 12 hours a night being a listening volunteer or to run a student mind session or anything like that? It's really hard. So I think I have to say no, altruism isn't enough anymore. We can't rely on it for everyone anyway. It's a privilege to have that time now. So where else do we look then? Well, community. I think there's a lot that can be done to sort of demystify what these services look like. And I think one avenue that I'd want each of them, and more widely volunteer positions as committees and societies as well, and clubs, is making sure we're fostering a sense of community that is giving back to you in ways that go beyond just the time you're putting in, that you're getting these skills, that you're getting friendships and life-changing experience, as I've had, simply by being a part of these amazing schemes.
Thank you. Okay, so I've got a question for both of you. Sam, I will come to you first. So recently, the Office for Students proposed that sexual relationships between academic staff and students need to be declared to protect students' well-being. Would you support this proposal?
Yes, absolutely. I would say that basically comes under conflict of interest, first and foremost, and also realistically an abuse of power, that perhaps there might be circumstances where, you know, it is perhaps okay, but realistically, how would you decide, you know, what is suitable, what is not? And I think kind of removing any kind of conflict of interest, that members of the university staff in particular have a duty of care to students, and that should come above personal life.
Okay, thank you, Sam. And same question to you, Liam.
Is there any more information about what they mean by declare? Just publicly state, report to higher management?
So it's been reported to university.
Reported to university, okay. Yeah, I mean, absolutely, right? It's power imbalance. There are so many things wrong with this. And even as we're saying this topic, I'm sure there is about half of the room that is thinking, yeah, I think I know who might this apply to. I think I know what this problem is. It's problematic. It's conflict of interest, exactly as you said. It's abuse of power, this idea that, sure, we are all adults here, right? But we are still susceptible to these problems. It's still a massive issue. And it should absolutely be known by upper management, because if they're not aware of these things and they've just got, the whispers of students, these rumours, absolutely not. There has to be some accountability. There absolutely must. It's the first I'm hearing about this, if I'm brutally honest, but no, absolutely. Needs to be overseen, needs to be... they need to be held accountable for this kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. All right, so Liam, I'm coming straight back to you with another manifesto question. Yeah. So can you elaborate on your vision to collaborate with local communities to improve Surrey's accessibility and to hold the university accountable?
Yes. I use the word community here. I'm trying to encapsulate the ideas of societies, student groups that aren't represented by societies, and also local, extra university communities. So I say this in part of my campaigning. I am a very mobile person. I don't have troubles. There are things that I take for granted every single day, like getting to the hive, being able to go downstairs and access this thing instead of having to go all the way around the houses, right? I would like to, as best I can, find the groups, find cultures that, because people do, they sort of get together with people who share these issues. And I would like to have conversations with them directly, and any charity organisations that could support this on a more professional level. But even at the student level, talking to these people and saying, I want you to tell me day to day what is going wrong, because I'm blind to it. As much as I can be empathetic, as much as I can try to really open my mind, there are things that no person can truly know if you're not in that situation. So we absolutely have to have those conversations. And the second part of that, hold the university accountable. If there are lifts that have been broken for months and we have raised tickets for estates to fix and they mark that it is fixed, we laugh, but it's a genuine issue. If these people are saying we have fixed this issue and it is not fixed and the person is not able to enter a venue, that is a problem. And we need a better way of saying, no, it's not just me as a manager. There are these hundreds of people who you are preventing from accessing these basic things by not caring. And we absolutely need to use these communities, use their voice, use their passions to hold the university accountable and actually make change.
Thank you. Okay, so this is our last manifesto question, and Sam, it's for you. So you say on your manifesto that you want to create a focus group to improve hybrid learning across different programs. Can you explain what it is you actually mean by hybrid learning?
Yep, so For students that aren't particularly aware at the moment, since the shift to sort of completely online teaching during COVID, we've now kind of come back to in-person classes with some online content, whether that be pre-recorded or live-streamed lectures. Essentially, this is a very controversial subject because students can't agree. Students such as myself have found particular ways that it's been implemented on our programs works really well. It provides flexibility, and as a neurodivergent student, it makes it much easier to study on my own terms. But how do we go about implementing this? For example, recruiting course reps, or perhaps head reps, given the sheer number of course reps. The university, for example, I was attending the Student Voice Forum, I think it was earlier this week, where the Pro-Vice Chancellor academic was speaking, and the senior management had visited, I think it was 4 institutions across the US and Canada, and that they had implemented a very different approach, which was you could have a kind of online version of the module or an in-person version of the module, and perhaps it might be that, say, 20% is completely online taught. And looking at those very innovative solutions and understanding that hybrid learning is not a one-size-fits-all solution. For example, the FHMS modules that I take part on have these kind of lecture bites, so it's pre-recorded content where they might cover topics that have previously been covered in other years or other modules, some of the basic background information, so that when you walk into the lectures, you're not scrabbling to write down notes, you already understand the concepts and you can focus on what's new.
Okay, thank you. All right, so you'll be glad to hear we've got a couple of questions left. So, Black and Black mixed ethnicity students are in the top 5 groups who report the lowest level of life satisfaction according to the Pulse survey, and they're also one of the least likely groups to say that they would turn to the Students' Union when they needed help or advice. So how are you going to encourage people to feel like the union is actually there for help and advice? And Liam, I'll come to you first.
Yeah. Well, one thing to note is that there are 2 white men on the stage, or 2 white male-presenting people here on stage, and that can be a problem when you want to seek support and you see that you're not necessarily being represented. What that can do is it can drive this barrier, and I'm saying this as if I know factually, but even me saying this on stage, I don't know, which is exactly why we need to access the communities. As a zonee this year, I have tried to, admittedly not as hard as I'd wanted to because of my other commitments, but we should absolutely be going to these societies. We should be working directly with a society-driven VP activity to talk to these people and go to their meetings, go to a committee meeting and say, hi, what are we not doing for you? For people in your culture, like societally, more generally, it's good to have that statistic, and it is a very scary statistic. Statistics are useful, but we need to know why. And we need to have that conversation more openly and not expect them to come to us, not for them to take the onus for our failures, but for us to go to them and have a very open conversation so that we can be held accountable as a union and find out what we can do to make active change from there.
Brilliant, thank you. And same question to you, Sam. Do you need me to repeat it, or are you good?
I'm okay, thank you. Yeah, so I completely agree with Liam that very much prioritising a student-led approach. The difficulty is, yes, I can advocate for LGBT students, for neurodivergent students, but even then, we are not a monolith. And applying that to, say, the black student population, I can't advocate for students when I don't have that lived experience and it's prioritising their voices. Yes, there are various EDI initiatives where, you know, theoretically representation in terms of staff and societies, but our initiatives, are they as inclusive and welcoming as they should be? Is it actually meeting the needs of students? For example, one of my manifesto points about creating comprehensive support sections includes students from the global majority. And actually, that was one of the statistics in mind, was the kind of student satisfaction and this consensus of a lack of support. Are the services that are currently being offered doing enough to reach out to particular students? And are they meeting those needs? For example, in addition to having the Centre for Wellbeing, some students, there may be a stigma in the community around open and honest discussions of mental health. In addition to providing very comprehensive and specific mental health support, for example, reaching out to the chaplaincy service and seeing if there can be overlap. You know, it's often very kind of isolated. It's a mental health thing, it's a bereavement support thing, and really it's bringing together kind of community and social-based aspects that I think we are lacking at the moment. So, for example, with the black student population, you know, as Liam said, societies, faith groups, all of that is key in engaging students and actually being able to ask them and going to them to ask them, what is important to you? What are we not doing that you need?
Thank you. Okay, the penultimate question, and then we can all chill out a bit. So, as Vice President Support, you will be a full-time paid officer in the Students' Union and a role model for all students. So, can you tell me what kind of leader are you, and why are you the right leader for the support zone next year? And Sam, I will come to you first, if that's okay.
Yep, so this is very much building on the work I've done as a course rep, both in my first year and current year, that a lot of the consistent feedback I've received and something I pride myself on is being a very compassionate and, I would like to believe, good communicator. That, to be perfectly blunt, I've used a lot of the support services affiliated with the union and university because the past few years have been pretty rough, to be quite blunt. And being an undiagnosed neurodivergent student, I didn't realize quite how much that was causing issues. Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yes, so it's just what kind of leader are you, and are you the right leader for the support zone next year?
Yes. So a lot of my manifesto builds on my lived experience, and really that in itself is not enough. I have used services that have been absolutely fantastic, but more importantly, some services perhaps are well-intentioned but are out of date or just don't meet the needs of students. And it's making sure to prioritize the needs of the students over my own personal preferences, making sure to make space, you know, the inherent privilege that comes being able to speak at an event like this. It is so much easier for me than many of my peers, and it's acknowledging that whilst implementing initiatives that, yeah, on paper I can say, oh, I'm supporting students from the global majority or disabled and neurodivergent students, but am I considering, for example, as Isabel was talking about, accessibility requirements, and in terms of mobility, those aren't things I can speak to, and I would pride myself on basically being able to be a very approachable and, I would hope, sort of reassuring presence.
Okay, thank you. And same question to you, Liam.
Yeah. You asked the question, and I look around the room, and I see people that I've led as Rubik's duty manager, as coordinator of Nightline, as the president of Ballroom and Latin, and I think, why? Why do they stick with me? And not in a disparaging way. And I would like to think it's because I empower them. Because I have had the best leaders who have said, yes, you can do that, Liam. Yes, you can go run an active listening training. Yes, you can go do these things because I trust you. And I think I'm an empowering leader because I see the skills that people have, and I don't want to tell you how to do your job. I want you to use your skills to do the best job you can. And bringing that to the VP role, I really want to have the fantastic manifesto, I'm struggling for words, that Isabel has brought and everything you've spoken about on this stage and everyone else who's applied, and I want to lead them and make their dreams happen, make what they're passionate about happen. I want to work with the coordinators and the service leaders of every service, and I want to say, what do you see? What can you do? Let's work on that together. I don't want to lead these and tell them how you should do all of your roles. I want to see you succeed, and I want to help you and push you in any way I can, but ultimately it is you, it is the students that make the difference, and I want to empower you to make it.
Thank you. Okay, it's time for your very last question, and I have a feeling you might know what I'm going to ask you. So, Liam, I'm going to ask you first. Who has your vote for union president and why?
Yeah, and for the last 2 years, I thought I was going to come on this stage and I would say that I was going to refuse the question. And now we're here. And I have to say, I've seen you work. I have the pleasure of working with you on Strictly. I've seen the way you make teams work, and more importantly, I've seen you learn. I've seen you make mistakes, own up to it, and make change to do something better, and say, I'm going to do better next time, and actually make that change. Joe, you're my president.
Okay, and Sam, what about you?
Oh, this is such a difficult one. Both Samsu and Joe have been fantastic in providing a huge amount of moral support. I can now say as a candidate on stage how difficult and intimidating that can be. Both of them have got fantastic points on their manifesto. Samsu for discussions around invisible and visible disabilities, and Joe for kind of outreach to GSA, vet school, Hazel Farm, postgrads, and building on the student equality network. Oh, if I had to pick, I would say I would be voting for Joe.
Okay, we are done. So let's give our two candidates a big round of applause. Good stuff. So we're going to head over to Pundits Corner now, and we will be back after the break for the Community Zone.
Hello and welcome to Pundits Corner. I'm joined by Oriana, Michael and Tom, and we're going to discuss what we've just seen from the support zone, both the Zoney debate and the VP support. So Oriana, what is your role and how do you support students in your day-to-day life?
Hello, I'm Oriana. I'm the current Vice President Support. I think the most important thing about my job is that I get to represent student interest in support-related issues in like big university meetings and tell the university what students really need and get things done, like the period poverty project. And yeah.
I mean, such an important remit and such an important role. Would you say the period poverty was one of the most important campaigns that you've run this year? Definitely.
It's so amazing. So we have around 8,000 students who have used for this project. So that's a big number. Sometimes you get to impact a few students in a major way, and then you get to impact a lot of students in a small way. But this project is affecting like more than half of our student population in a major way. So yeah, definitely.
100%. Michael, what is your role and how do you support students in your day-to-day life?
Right, well, thanks very much. My role is an Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Advisor here at the university, and I look after equality, diversity and inclusion for staff and students. As you know, Megan, I work very closely with the Student Union on lots of different projects. We're just about to finish LGBT History Month, so we've been doing a number of events around that. I've been on panels for Shag Day events in the past, and then also do a lot of support looking at other characteristics which many of the candidates have articulated very well today, and perhaps we'll get on to a bit more of that in depth.
I agree. A lot of accessibility issues came up, LGBT issues. Do you think there needs to be more targeted support for students in these areas?
Absolutely, yeah. I thought Isabel made some excellent points about accessibility and reporting and then things not being done. And also I felt she was talking about the app, which we're very proud of, but as you say, if it's difficult to navigate, difficult to use, then we need to know about that and adapt it. And sometimes I think the communication of what is actually out there isn't as good as it should be. So no, and I mean, it's great. And I think the manifestos are always fantastic to look at and think, right, where can we work with you? Not thinking, oh, this is going to be a challenge, and think, well, yeah, come on now, we'll actually work with you to actually deliver on these manifesto promises.
And I think for Isabel, sometimes it does take that lived experience to, articulate that, because other students wouldn't know how to represent that or that was even going on.
Absolutely, yeah, no, lived experience is very important. As I say, I cover all aspects of equality, diversity and inclusion, but I don't have lived experience in all the characteristics that we cover. So when I hear from staff and students about how they're actually affected personally, that's so much more important than the theory behind it. Yeah.
100%. Tom? Who are you and what do you do to support students in your day-to-day role?
Yes, so hello, my name's Tom. I run Hoods Residential here on campus. We're an off-campus accommodation provider. We have about 300 rooms for students. And in addition to that, we work with the support and advice team within the Student Union, helping particularly with housing support. So any students who have any problems with their housing off campus can come and see the advice and support team, who will then refer to us if they need specialist help and advice.
Yeah, quite a lot came out of the debate in terms of the guarantor scheme. Do you know many details, given that you worked with the university previously on that scheme?
Yes, the guarantor scheme is an incredibly complicated project. It is definitely on the horizon. It is something that, so the university used to have a lettings team within the accommodation office, the University of Surrey Lettings, which offered students rooms without the need for a guarantor. And since that's been closed down, more emphasis has now been put on the guarantor scheme for particularly overseas students who may not have UK-based guarantors, or lower income families, those kind of students that might need a bit more support. And the feeling generally is that the university could be doing more to set up what could be a very successful guarantor scheme.
I mean, I agree. I mean, quite a lot of those issues came out in terms of the support that we offered to students from international background. I mean, Oriana, you're working on an international survey at the moment. Is it really important to gather these views, given that all the students we've heard from tonight aren't international?
I mean, as an international student, I can say that definitely coming to this country was complicated. And there's a lot of things that I've seen that I wish the university and the Students' Union had done better in the past. Larry's, the previous Vice President's support, International Student Survey was such a good idea, but because it happened in the summer, a lot of the students weren't checking their emails to see it. So now I'll be doing that in March, hopefully getting that response back from students and seeing what they need in their everyday lives, because they're a major part of our populace here at Surrey.
100%.
And can I just come in on that as
Yeah.
well? I just think from the university perspective, we're going out around the world recruiting staff and students, and we've got to make sure that we support them 100%, because they all come with very different needs, and it's really important. We are an international university, so we have to actually support everybody, so it's really important.
Yeah, and quite a lot of belonging comes into coming onto campus, particularly if you are an international student. So what role does support play in improving a feeling of belonging for students?
Right, well, yeah, that's a good question. I think, I mean, for my sort of mantra is that you should be able to bring your whole self to the university. So whether you're an international student, an LGBT student, a student with accessibility needs, that you bring your whole self to university, and then we as the university support you as your whole self. And I think it's really interesting with all three candidates who we've heard from tonight. They've really highlighted some characteristics which present challenges for the person and also for the university. And I think we've got to work together to make sure that the support is real support, not just sort of the mantra of support. So it's really important.
Really agree. Quite a lot came out about volunteering. So Oriana, what benefits do students get from volunteering to help other students from our PIF support services that did come up?
I mean, I am biased in answering this question because I volunteer for every single union support service. I think that the most important thing is that support services are usually a family. So within Student Minds, within Nightline, within Welfare Watch, all our wellbeing champions that you will see, we create Leo-like supportive cycles, and the volunteers gain not just employability skills and, you know, things to put on their CV and the feeling that you're helping your community, but you also get such a big cycle that is there for you, and you get to experience helping students. I mean, there's nothing greater, I think, in my experience, than when I end a day's work and I know that I've made a big impact in student experience, and all of our services, whether they are university or support or union, they all provide that to students. They make students more employable, but most of all, they make students empathetic listeners and active listeners, and it's just, you then become, I think, a better person.
Yeah, I mean, these volunteering opportunities are amazing opportunities, but we've seen quite a low uptake, and I think that came up in the debate. How is the support zone dealing with that at the moment?
So I think it's really important to understand why we're seeing this low engagement. Is not just the cost of living crisis and the fact that students have 2 and 3 part-time jobs and they can't volunteer. There's been a gap since COVID. So we've relied on students telling the next generation of students what's good and what to do and what to volunteer for. And because we've lost that communication line, I think the union and the university need to understand that we need to start afresh. There's all these. In previous poll surveys, we've seen 75% and 80% of students knowing what Nightline is, but now that number is severely lower because the people who knew it and the people who volunteered for Nightline and who used Nightline have graduated. So I think that's the most important bit, that the line of communication between the years is broken because of COVID.
And do you feel that as well, given that you've started afresh, given that you've got a new team, new name, you work somewhere different? Do you feel like you've had to rebuild everything you worked on previously?
Yes, yeah, it was a big shame when USL closed down the University of Surrey Lettings team, because it had such a power within the community, particularly with local estate agents, but also broad knowledge of local landlords, and the name carried a weight so that we could communicate with these people with authority, and that was essentially lost, unfortunately. And it's something we're absolutely trying to rebuild, and it's moving more over to the union, so it'll be more what the VPs are going to be more involved with going forward.
Do you feel like, though, you have more control over what services you can provide for students, and in a way that's made it a bit better?
Yes, it's much easier to make quick decisions that make a big impact, absolutely. But the flip side to that is obviously we're a much smaller operation now, so there's only a limit onto what we can do. So it's definitely working with the union and the university, but yes, hopefully making some good decisions.
So coming off of that, do you think that students feel supported equally both on and off campus, and how has the cost of living crisis affected students renting in private accommodation?
It has absolutely affected them heavily. I think the support on and off campus is very good from both the union and the university. I think the candidates touched on it slightly tonight, which was potentially publicising events. I know they do the housing fair, I know they do the welfare, and there's all sorts of events throughout the year that students can get involved in, as well as all sorts of information out there that's not necessarily getting through to the students, and turnouts for these events can be quite low. So I would like to see someone come in and really sort of galvanise the opportunity to get students involved, at which case expertise is in their hands, definitely. Cost of living is just horrendous at the moment. Students are struggling with it across the board. We're trying to support them absolutely everywhere we can, but it's just the reality we have to face at the moment.
And reflecting off something you said earlier, it's about those small things as well as those large things as well. Obviously, you've been up on that stage a year ago. Did you feel for both of the VP support candidates up there?
Yeah, I did. I mean, if you watched last year's debate, my hands were shaking. It's definitely an experience.
I mean, they've both performed really well, both articulate, both provided some amazing manifesto points. It could be a very difficult decision for our audience out there. Michael, what are some projects or causes you look forward to collaborating on with the union in the future, particularly reflecting on the support zone?
Well, I mean, I mentioned LGBT History Month, so we always work closely with you in the Student Union on that. Black History Month as well, International Women's Day. But then we don't just celebrate and address those aspects of diversity at those times of the year. We do it all year round, really. So, and as I said earlier, it's really good to look at the manifestos. And I can remember when you all started as VPs or presidents, and then we meet. And we hear about what you're going to stand for, and then you're always knocking on our door, email us, etc. And from the equality, diversity and inclusion perspective, and I've got a student audience here, but I love the students because they think and want to achieve what I want to achieve as well. And sometimes it's difficult for me to actually get the university to listen as well. So with the combined sort of force of you, the student union, and us, the equality, diversity and inclusion team, I think we can make change. And I think it's really important that when we go to the senior management here, we can actually say, well, look, the student union, they've got it in their manifestos, they've been elected, and they want to deliver. How are we going to help you to deliver? And I think that's really important. And every year, I've always seen change. And I know sometimes you find it frustrating because you don't get exactly what you want, but I do think you all make progress and you push the bar that bit higher, which is fantastic. So well done, Student Union.
Oh, thank you. We love compliments on the Pundits night. Similar question for you, Tom. What projects or causes are you looking forward to collaborating with the union in the future?
Well, as we touched on, definitely the housing fair. I think that could be expanded and made absolutely bigger and better. More student involvement and engagement at that stage will give them a better chance when they move off campus. I think from the students' point of view, the project is in itself moving off campus. Putting together groups for private housing or choosing to live in purpose-built housing or commuting even. All of these options, there is a lot of information out there, like I said. So working with the student union to do the lecture series that we did in November, again, getting a bigger turnout for that and giving particularly first years a chance to really get their head around what they're getting into before making that commitment to move off campus.
100%. Oriana, a lot came up in terms of what the VP support does do, but I think when you join the job, you find out there's so much that you do that you don't even realise. So what aspects of support do students not maybe realise that you deal with in your role?
So I think it's really important to kind of make it clear that the Vice President's support role is not to kind of support every individual student, but it's more so to represent the wider community's interests. And I think a lot of people don't know that I sit in these very lengthy meetings where we're discussing safety on campus and all sorts of like really important things, and I get to make real life changes. So, for example, I sit in the extenuating circumstances workshops every week, and that's just something that affects every single student. I think the majority of students will need in their university experience and at least one EC, and I get to be there for those really big decisions. And actually, there's been situations where the university have made one decision when, from the support room, we had to be like, wait a second, no, that's not good. That's not good enough.
But in a way, having that representation, like having you in the room, is so important.
Yeah, I mean, even though I graduated in July, I feel like I'm more close to the issues that affect students than a lot of the university staff, no matter how much they try. And I also get to hear back from my part-time officers who are still students, and I know what they're experiencing, and I get to bring that to the room.
Yeah, and just reflecting on that, I think students' personal anecdotes, they often come into Surrey Decides and the manifestos. For you, Michael, does that, when you hear it from someone's lived experience, does that really make a difference?
Absolutely, yeah, indeed. I mean, I lead on LGBT support, for instance, and so when I reflect, I've been at the university 10 years, and I think the number of trans students we had 10 years ago to what we have now, it's changed completely, and I've spoken to and supported quite a few trans students, so I can actually speak on behalf of them if they need me to speak on behalf of them, so that's a big difference as well. And as I say, certainly equality, diversity, inclusion challenges that have risen up the agenda tenfold from when, as I say, I first started. So yeah, so the individual experience, and then you can think if one or two students are coming to you saying they're feeling like this, whatever area it is in, then you think there's probably a lot of others who aren't coming to me and saying that, but they still need the support as well. So, yeah, but it's the ones who actually put their heads above the parapet. And then also, of course, you all come to us as well, because students have spoken to you to come to speak to us. So you are the voice of the students, yeah. So
we definitely need to hear from students.
Yeah.
Thank you to all our pundits from tonight, and now we're going to move on to the community zone debate.
Chairing the debate for the community zone, Sam Lane.
Right then. Hello everyone. My word, what some strong candidates we had for the support zone. Good Lord. I mean, I hope that we can even begin to come close to that with the community zone. Okay, so without further ado, I hope you've all got your drinks. I hope you're all ready and raring to go for another thrilling debate. I'd like to welcome our candidates.
Please welcome to the stage your candidates for the community zone.
Okie dokie then. So I obviously see that you've all brought your manifesto and stuff with you. That's great. So without further ado, I thought we'd start off with down at the end. We'll work our way from one end to the other. Tell us who you are and why you're running for the community zone.
Hi everyone, my name is Abby Solar, and people commonly call me Abby. And the reason why I chose to run for the community zone is just because we need more representation of this color, and I just decided to put myself out there. So just if any other students is wondering to come up next for the next one, then they'll know, oh, someone actually went first, so I can do it. So I just wanted to promote inclusivity and diversity. Technically, that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up.
Hi everyone, I'm Michael and I am running for Community Zone. I am currently the Vice President for the Mahjong Society. I'm also a Senior Student Ambassador, a My Surrey Hive Ambassador, a Peer Support Ambassador and an Undergraduate Marketing Ambassador. All of these experiences has allowed me to talk to hundreds of students and I've really heard about what they want to be improved and I just really want to improve their student experience involving Rubik's and more events in general.
Next up.
Hi everybody, I'm Zach. I'm running for the Community Zone as I'm an active volunteer within our community and want to increase the sustainability around campus.
Next up.
Hi all, my name is Amol Vishwanath Tidikia. You can call me Amol, the simple one. Currently I'm doing Masters in 5G Communications. Like I'm beyond the country, like cultures of India. So sorry. The thing is, yeah, sorry. Thank you.
That's okay. That's okay. We yep. Do you need. Next up, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Almas. I'm a postgrad student in communication, networks and software. I am passionate about gaining more and more knowledge. I am a very hardworking person and whatever task I try to do, I do it with full passion and concentration. So I want to be a part of Community Zone because I think that I can make the campus a fun and a better place to study. Yeah, thank you.
And finally.
Hi everyone, I'm Matt. I'm a second year aerospace engineering student. I'm currently the president of People and Planet, so I'm quite clued up on like sort of student activism and like interacting with the Students' Union. I'm running for Community Zone because I want to help promote sustainability across campus and also action on social issues, which is something I'd work strongly with Voice Zone. And also I want to help run events as well to help just bring Surrey students together, so sort of more variety in all sorts of events for everyone.
Thank you very much there, everyone. Okay, so we're going to start off with a selection of questions for all of the candidates. Obviously, as we have quite a few of you, we would appreciate reasonably concise but also full answers as well in the interest of getting through everybody as fairly as we can. So, starting down at the end, if we can have what is your key manifesto point and why is it so important to you? So, what is your key manifesto point and why is it such an important thing for you?
My key manifesto point is promoting inclusivity and diversity. And why is it so important to me? Is because as a student of that color, I've heard students of my color also complain and grumble about certain activities that could actually come to light. And I want to be the one to be able to start a project that someone else can then take over after. So the reason why I'm saying this is because, for instance, some events that we could implement in Rubik's culture and activities that we could carry together, everyone along with as a student of color. I'm focusing major on the representation of black students, literally. Thank you.
Excellent stuff. Thank you. On to Michael.
Cool. So I think the main manifesto point that I really want to focus on next year is working with clubs and societies to bring more events celebrating all of our different cultures and traditions here at Surrey. Coming to Surrey, it's been amazing to see all these different cultures, but there are still a lot that is underrepresented and the people just don't feel like they can properly celebrate their cultures. So I just really want to be able to work with more societies to support them and make them feel welcome here at Surrey.
Right, so one of my most important points in manifesto is to encourage a wide range of social events and not just necessarily having more diverse club nights, having more events on campus that can be attended with or without alcohol. So encouraging nights like pizza, game nights, having these led by their relevant societies. I know Video Game Society and GameSoc would be wonderful to collaborate with. and I want to encourage a wide range of events, whether it be more cultural, whether it be in different settings, or just generally just increasing it away from just, oh, let's go to Rubik's and get pissed.
Fair enough.
There are 2 points which are like more concern about me. The first point is increase students' employability rate. And the second one, enhancing transportation shuttle services between Manap and the Hazel Farm. Because if you consider the second point, like currently I'm staying in the Hazel Farm, and if you see the distance, everyone has known the distance from Hazel Farm. The thing is, it's almost, if you can walk, it's already more than 15 minutes. If you go by a bus, it will take more than 40 minutes. So as if you want to come to college, it's like wasting literally 1.5 hours daily. So that's like, according to me, that's a more key point for me. Thank you.
Okay.
My key point is to build a community that goes beyond the college, that goes beyond the campus, a community that helps all the overseas students, especially because I'm a postgrad student and I'm very new to this place, and it's hardly been like 20 days since I'm here in the university. So it becomes quite difficult to engage with the rest of the students who have already been in the university for quite some time. So I want to build a community that helps each other, all of us engage with one another. Yeah, that's my key point. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally.
I think probably my most important point on my manifesto is it's got to be the ethical careers fair. I feel like there's a lot of students, they voice concerns over the careers that are being advertised to them by the university. And I feel like the students' unions should represent the voice of the students and help set up an ethical careers fair that sort of gives options, alternatives in sustainable industries and areas which are sort of not looked at as often but are going to be a huge part of the future. Yeah, that's...
Thank you. Thank you very much all there for your considered answers. Now, okay, so we're going to go through and have a couple more questions for all, and then we're going to start talking about a few more of your manifesto points individually, if that's all right with you guys. Okay, so the next question is, which of your manifesto points do you feel is the most likely to succeed? So, which of you put the most effort in, and which do you feel is going to have the most impact and effect as and when it succeeds? We can start with Absola.
I've put in organizing a free dance class for people who want to actually learn new skill, and that I think might be the hardest because I think I would need to be able to get people to engage more in most of my other manifestos before getting to that stage. So I think that would be my hardest manifesto point, because I would need to be able to communicate to loads of students within and outside the color, and I just need everyone together because it's not limited, and I would love people to engage more. So I feel that might be my hardest, trying to organize a dance class which is like Afrofusion themed, meaning it's like cultures merged together with Afrobeats, because I dance, and then be able to teach them the new skills. So I feel like that might be the hardest one of my manifestos. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Michael.
Could we repeat the question, please?
Of course. Which of your manifesto points do you feel is the most likely to succeed?
So one of my manifesto points focuses on Rubik's and improving the different theme nights and also the genres of music played. Having talked to so many people on nights out and while I'm doing one of my shifts on my job, the general consensus is that it's the same music being played and there isn't enough themes that are interesting people. Having a nightclub on campus is such a blessing. To know that you can go out and club with your friends and it's mainly students is, great. And it would just be nice to engage with more students and make them feel like they are excited to come and just have a good night.
Fair enough.
So my manifesto point, the one I believe is most likely to succeed, will be creating a safer campus at night, as there's multiple ways that we can achieve this, whether it will be lighting up the dark sections, increased security patrols, or even having more just general awareness on what numbers to contact and report and support.
Thank you.
Should I start? Yeah. According to me, my first manifesto point is a little bit different and hard. The thing is like increase students' employability rate. Nowadays, you are listening that word, one word like recession. I don't know if it will come or not, but people are talking like industry people. Like if you ask me personally, like I was working for 5 years in the industry. Like I work for different, top MNC companies like Sony, Mediatek, Qualcomm. So I know like what industry people wants, and like as a students, like whatever we are learning, that may be enough or may not be enough. The thing is like that breach is there, so we just want to remove the breach. So like our employability rate can be increased. So I just want like getting job, because here we are doing study, but our aim, like final aim is like we need to get a job or whatever the study, like PhD, whatever we want to do, we need to achieve success in our life. So the thing is like if you didn't achieve that, then whatever the like funds, what are the things we are doing here, that will be our bad memories. So we are enjoying here, but the thing is our final output should be there. So the main point, like if you got job, if you got employment rate, then it will be good. So I think that working on that point, it should be hard. But yeah, we'll achieve it if we all are together. Thank you.
Thank you.
My manifesto point, which is most likely to succeed, is welfare, which is encompassing services that promote the physical, mental, as well as the social well-being of the student, ensuring to provide services that foster the culture of caring and positivity among everybody. Thank you.
I think probably my policy most likely to succeed would probably be the combined food co-op and swap shop. As it's already it's been put in place already by the current SU, in particular current VP Community Joe. It's been worked on quite well, and it seems to be coming on quite nicely. There's something that I would like to help carry on through to the next year, as well in particular because I know some of the VP communities standing have also got similar policies about student swap meets and similar items. So I think that would be probably my policy most likely to succeed.
Thank you. Outstanding, guys. I would say brilliant stuff so far. Thank you very much, all of you. So, okay, final all question until we start looking into your manifestos. Obviously, you are all students. You all have, you're obviously a postgrad, but obviously you're all incredibly busy. How do you propose that your time as a part-time officer will fit in around your studies and around your work? How do you plan to manage your time? Starting with Abby.
So I plan to manage my time because currently I work part-time. So being able to balance that and also university work, it's a lot of like dedication and consistency. And how I plan to fit in the role of the community zone is it's something I feel would naturally come, because if I can do this, I would need a break between uni life and the stress. Like there would be a time I would need, I need to take a break and actually listen to everyone else and stuff. So how I plan to manage my time would be just having a great schedule and taking out time to actually, because it's like a dedication, I've put myself up for it, so I might not need to back up on my word because, I just put myself on it. I need to do what I came out to do, so I want to see what I can do. I want to push myself beyond my limits. So thank you.
Thank you. Michael.
So, well, I must admit, I do have quite a busy schedule on a day-to-day basis. Normally I've got lectures and then I'm normally working in the evening and then going out on a Wednesday and Friday. I have focused my manifesto based on things that I am truly passionate about and that I want to work on. So Rubik's and working on more events and increasing inclusivity and diversity is all things that I'm incredibly passionate about and I would want to really improve. And regardless if I have a very little and limited amount of time left to focus on it, I would put all of my passion into that.
Okay, thank you.
Despite having quite a packed university timetable, I would be more than happy to respond and act at any point in the day. As some of the students who have actually seen me around campus, I would go around relatively late at night putting up some of my posters and campaign materials. I'm always happy to be flexible with my schedule. I'd be contactable at any point. So I believe that I'd be able to fit in like the work quite easily, really.
Thank you.
Despite having a master's students, like schedules is very busy, but according to me, if you want to do anything by heart or by passion, you'll get it time. So in the morning or in the evening, we can find it. So getting time, I don't think it will be a like big hurdle. So yeah, we'll manage the time. That's it.
I'm a multitasker, so whatever task I take in my hand, I try to do it with full passion and concentration. So I'll make sure that if I get elected and if I am a part of community zone, I will take out time from my busy schedule and manage my lectures as well as my part-time job and give my 100% to this role as well. Thank you.
So mine's a bit of an odd one because I'm actually going to be, well, hopefully going to be on placement next year. So I should hopefully be nearby as well. So I'm still able to sort of interact with the uni community here. But also I do already spend quite a lot of my time doing similar things such as, for instance, People and Planet and Labour Soc. I do a lot of sending emails and all the stuff that you do in the SU. So I'm already handling that quite well. As a lot of people tell you, I'm almost always busy, but I handle it well. So
Outstanding stuff. I say thank you very much, guys. All brilliant answers. Thank you very much. Okay, so in the interest of time, we're going to start moving on towards more individually manifesto-focused questions. So to start up with, we have a question for you, Amol, about your proposals to the additional transport systems around campus. So can you talk a little bit more about the potential solutions that you have to the current bus service? Have you been in contact with the bus providers in Guildford, or do you propose any other additional systems that you would like to implement?
First, I will start like why I face the issue. Like this is the 26th day I'm in the UK. I'm staying in Hazel Farm. The thing is, initially I used to walk to college. Literally more than an hour I used to take to college to reach. The thing is, like, we are also part of college, right? We are also like staying, like living in college accommodation. But the thing is, if you see like transportation, there are only government bus transportation is available. That's also like very irregular. If you see the timings, continuously buses are getting cancelled nowadays. No third option is available. Literally people are hectic, like they are literally depressed. And many of my colleagues, my friends you can call, they shifted to Staghill and like other, codes. So what is the thing? Like we are also like as a being Hazel Farm thing. So we feel that we should do something better in that, because I am personally feel the issue. I'm like literally living the issue. So the thing is, that's like my biggest manifesto point. Now I'm coming to your question. The most thing is, like, if you want to do something, like we need to do it. Like we are no need to stand about the question. The thing is, yeah, I discussed with it. I heard from like some past previous years, there was direct bus, or you can say that direct transportation there was there from college to Hazel Farm. So like if you can do anything like that, like it saves us time also. Like if you say even for government bus, we are taking 40 to 45 minutes to come to college. If you come by your own car, it's only take hardly 12 minutes. So literally we are wasting our daily time. So if we can do any direct transportation from college or any other, like we can talk with like higher management. So that will be very easy. If you ask about my plans, my plan is very basic, very simple. I just want to talk with management, because there are n number of students which are living in Hazel Farm. Most of people are facing same issues. So we can become a voice, like as part of this committee. If we can focus, then people will be like, they will be very happy, or their problem will be solved. So yeah, that's the thing. According to me, first and best option is direct transfer, which was there previously. I don't know why they like stopped due to some reasons. So if you can start that time, and if there's like in the morning one or some buses are timing are like there, then it can save timing. That time we can use in other stuff. Like we can use that time to this community zones. We can study. We can do part-time thing. Whatever the hell like we want to do, we can do that. So according to me, yeah, this is the thing we can do, man. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so Almas, you are obviously a postgrad student, as am I. Like, if your timetable is anything like mine, we are crazy busy, aren't we? Just yeah. So how do you propose to incentivize other postgrad students to take part in your proposed mentorship program, where already obviously busy postgrad students are spending lots of time doing their research? How do you propose to incentivize them to take part in helping undergrads, etc.?
So what I propose is there's this campaign called Ask a Postgrad. So most of us, it's just been like a month or so since we have all started. So most of us face a lot of issues. And especially me being an overseas student, I have left home and I've come so far, and I'm facing a lot of issues. Maybe it's the accommodation or the travel or food. Almost everything is very new. So the post-graduation course is for like a shorter duration. It's just for 1 year. So we think that it's just 1 year. So somehow let's, not think too much and just live by it and finish it off. But I don't think so. That's the solution to the problem. I feel that each of the postgrad students have to communicate, build a community among themselves so that they can help one another gain better. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we're now going to go over to the other side of the bench. Abby. What positive impact on the health of students would you like to see? So how would you like to cause a positive impact on students' health, whether it be mental, physical, and how can you see yourself doing that?
So did you say health-wise or general well-being?
Yes, general well-being.
General well-being. I genuinely see myself as an example of a student who, after coming out from a new country, settling in a new environment, and putting myself forward here is actually a big challenge, but I still took the bull by the horn and said, Abby, you can do this. And how I see myself doing this will be, I am quite so social. Most people, I'm not going to say everyone, most people here know me as someone you can just walk up to, speak to me about your concern. If there's a problem you're having that you can't speak to people about, feel free to come to me, and I'm quite approachable, I would say, because most people on campus just tend to say, hi, Abby, and I think I would view myself as someone who is ready to listen to people and then listen to where they think something should be done, or if you need more help around somewhere, if you need to talk to someone, I'm always here. And being a positive example in the sense that I have come forward to this stage as someone who would never have thought of being on this stage before. I think that is a great example for anyone else willing to just come out of their shell, break out of your shell, and genuinely speaking, I'm always here for everyone. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up, sticking with this side of the bench, Michael. Your manifesto talks of your previous experiences. Which do you feel was the most valuable in preparing you for this role?
Okay. I would probably say doing peer support since semester 1 this year has been the one that has prepared me the most for this role. I've got the chance to speak to so many incoming freshers and first years that, are completely new to this uni, and I get to hear what they want to see, and I get to, find out about their questions and their experience so far and what they think could be done better or what they're uncertain of. And so I think it has really helped me to understand what the experience is like for freshers and for just new students coming to Surrey.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you. And finally, sticking along this side of the bench, Zach. Hello. Okay, so which sections of the campus were you proposing to take the most effect on. So which parts of campus were you intending to make the most change to?
So I've actually already started to make some plans for change, coordinating with the States team and Ian Handy, as we are currently in the process of creating a volunteering opportunity for the Roundhouse Chaplaincy building located in Cathedral Court. As well, I'm currently working with two wonderful volunteers, Josh and Days, to restore the Garden Society. So that would be one of my main focus, tackling around Old Guildford Court, which, as many of you now know, is no longer in use due to having endangered bat species in the roof. I would propose that we start to tidy up and clean these areas. We've made plans that hopefully soon will be shared with the wider university to see how we plan to change the gardens, clear everything out in the roundhouse, making it a space again where students will go to pray and just have some silent time to themselves as well. Thank you.
Just a brief, gentle reminder that we probably shouldn't be using staff names as they have no right to reply. Not telling you off or anything, just a brief note for the future. So I got that from on high, so I thought I would just broadcast that through to you. It's quite right. Okay, so moving on now to Matt. Hello. So you mentioned the swap shop. How's it going so far? What's needed to get it fully operational? How do you intend to get that working?
Yeah, so I think one thing that's been communicated to me so far, which is a bit of an issue, is the need for a supplier. I'm not sure, this is about a week ago. I don't know if anything else has changed since then. But because of the cost of living crisis, suppliers, wholesalers are they're cutting their own profit margins, which makes it harder to make a viable swap shop at sort of cost price. It's just something that needs to be kind of worked on. We might have to work out some tricky deals. But that's I think that's the biggest challenge that faces it currently. And it's something that's definitely doable. It just needs quite a lot of sort of negotiation and a lot of hard work, I think.
Excellent stuff. Okay. So, yeah. Every single one of those answers, all well considered, all well thought out. Outstanding stuff, guys. You're all doing brilliantly. So, okay. So, final question, which we were just curious about. So, how are you all going to try and ensure that the union can prioritise your ideas from a financial perspective? So, how are you going to make sure that your changes are basically financially viable? Starting, which end are we feeling like? Abby, are you good to start?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
No. Most of my manifesto points have mostly been non-paid. I don't know how to describe it. It's something that I just want to do. I'm not genuinely asking for contribution and financial support. But if anything, most of my events that I've planned to organize has no impact on the financial cost that has been laid down before for previous support zones. So I am not inflating or deflating. I'm just working within the range of the finances which is available for me to work on. And I've also actually put up myself and volunteered free classes, free event and stuff like that. So I genuinely am not working because we are all students and we have to work with the union as well. So I'm not inflating or deflating. I'm just working within the budget the union has, and I will definitely work something around it. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go for a salt shaker. Matt.
So I've got probably about 3 main manifesto points which would require some sort of some budget. That being the food co-op and the swap shop, vape recycling points, and more funding for society competitions. So starting for that one, that one's not really, it doesn't need to raise money. It just needs better, better allocation of the funds. The money's there. It's just it needs to be sort of worked out with societies about what exactly they need. Vape recycling points. That's one. I've absolutely no idea how much it will cost. It's one of those things that's sort of it's an idea that develops over time. It's not going to cost absolutely millions. it could probably even be sort of funded with like a fundraiser around campus even. And then finally the food co-op and the swap shop. That's already that is, like I've said, it's being addressed by the Students' Union already. So like the funds have sort of already allocated, I assume, and it's all cleared, so it shouldn't be a problem.
Awesome stuff. Thank you. Back across to the other side. Michael?
Okay. Well, most of my manifesto points, I wouldn't necessarily say that they are incorporating something new or bringing something new. I just want to work on what's already existing. So with Rubik's Nights, this has been happening for years. Whether it's a case of perhaps needing to increase the budget to get a new DJ or to get new decorations for the night, that might be something that I would have to work on. But currently, I don't know how funding works for such events goes on. Furthermore, working with clubs and societies to bring events, they have their own budget, they have their own accounts that we can utilize in case that the funding from the union side isn't as great. So yeah, it would just be a case of working with clubs and societies and then also just seeing what it takes to fund an event.
Certainly. Cool. Thank you. Almas?
Yeah. Most of my manifesto points do not require a lot of funding because these are the platforms which have been already worked by the previous community zone members, but maybe the Ask a Postgrad campaign might require funding because I think of creating a website or an app that is very friendly and easily accessible by the postgrads. Yeah.
Outstanding. Thank you.
So in terms of funding, most of my events actually do revolve around volunteer work, as in a lot of the cleaning up of the campus, improving green spaces would be under volunteering. As for things that would include budget, that would be increasing our range of social events. However, there are certainly ways that we'd have to discuss with higher management within the university, but there are certainly ways that we can incorporate it in, whether the events have to be then ticketed, unticketed, or anything of the sort.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you. And finally,
If you see my all points are budget friendly. If you see the third one, that is transportation. If like we got direct bus, we'll say petrol. That means we'll save more money. So again, we can say plus financial points in this. And if you see like other points, like employability rate, like if we got to increase employability rate, like my plan for is like we can collab with industry people, and like the people like me who has like more experience, like who came to college like after taking some experience, we can share our valuable experience to candidates like or to colleagues who are like freshers. So I don't think it require much more money. So we can say that is also like budget friendly. So yeah, my points are mostly budget friendly only.
thank you very much. Okay then, right, the final question. Now this question will test the very vistas of your ability. It will sum you up as people. Ignoring the name, is a Jaffa cake a biscuit or a cake? Starting with Matt.
Right, I've got a gripe with Jaffa cakes.
Oh.
Absolutely hate them. So, yeah. I know, unconventional opinion, but they taste disgusting. They're horrible.
Orange is not for everyone.
No, I once lost a bet and had to eat a whole pack of them, and I spat most of them out in the sink halfway through. So, is Jaffa cake a biscuit or a cake? I'd say, as they come in a little pack like that, and they're wrapped in plastic, I'd say they're biscuits and not a cake. Actually, let me take that back. They come in a rectangular box, not a square box, so they're biscuits.
In the interests of time, I must curtail this rant, though thank you very much for that. That's very interesting. Abby.
Is Jaffa cake a cake or a biscuit? God, I'm gonna go for a biscuit because it's just covered in chocolate, in my opinion. Don't quote me wrong. And to me, I genuinely don't like it as well. Just like Matt said, I'm sorry, but it's called Jaffa cakes, but the packaging is biscuit-like. And when you also go to the mall, you wouldn't find it in the cake section. You'll find it in the biscuit section. But honestly, to me, it's a biscuit. Well, anyone else, I'm so sorry, but yeah, to me, it's a biscuit.
Almas.
I haven't tried it.
Okay. Michael.
Well, so far it seems like I'll have the controversial opinion. I think Jaffa cakes are a cake, just little mini ones. Most biscuits that I've had growing up are usually hard and they snap, but a cake, a Jaffa cake, they're soft, so I will go with a cake.
So I think we're going to have a bit of beef with Matt. I absolutely love Jaffa cakes, but yeah, I will class them as a biscuit. The packaging, the style, it's just not a cake, it's a biscuit.
Both of us haven't tried it.
We haven't tried Jaffa cakes, but it's about biscuits. Like my 100% vote goes to biscuit, as I am a tea person. Every time you can eat biscuits, when I'm free in the morning, afternoon. So biscuit, fine. Yep.
With that, thank you very much for your attention. Now, we have just received a small note about two of the other candidates who did apply to perform, or who did apply to undertake the role of Community Zone PTO. However, they were unable to attend this evening, so that is Christopher and Nizrin. Their manifestos, if they've chosen to submit one, can be found at the ballot or online. Okay, with that, I would very much like to thank our candidates for some brilliant responses to the serious questions and some hilarious responses to the not serious ones. Thank you very much for your time, guys. Have a lovely rest of your evening. Have a lovely...
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, and I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossom in the trees, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. On a fault line late night, underneath the stars we came alive, and singing to the sky just felt right. I won't forget the good times, while the punks started picking fights with the skater kids under city lights. Remember how we laughed till we cried. I won't forget the good times. I never want to leave this sunset town, but one day the time may come, and I'll take you at your word and carry on. I'll hate the goodbye, but I won't forget the good times. I won't forget the good times. I never want to leave this sunset town, but one day the time may come, and I'll take you at
Please welcome to the stage your chair for the Rag Chair debate, Sam James. Please welcome to the...
Well, thank you very much, everyone. We're nearly at the end of the night, just 2 debates to go. The next one will be Rag Chair, which is a part-time role in the community zone, focused on the volunteering and charity areas of the union. So with that done, let's welcome our candidate up onto the stage.
Please welcome to the stage your candidates for the Rag Chair.
Ready?
Yeah.
Fantastic. So first of all, can you please just introduce yourself and explain why you're running for the position of Rag Chair?
So I'm Dhanraj, and I'm running for Rag Chair because I like to help people, and yeah, that's me. So, and I want to like expand and make this better for everyone and get more charities involved and stuff. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So first of all, I'm just going to ask you a general question to start off with. So current trends at the union have sadly shown a decline in the number of volunteers at the SU.
Yeah.
Can you explain how you would engage more students if you were to become Rag Chair?
We could appreciate them through giving them stars, and we could get more volunteers involved by giving them some names, like we could call them like community manager, or like we could call them events manager, and we could appreciate them more, and we could get them going and involved more with the RAG.
So more of a reward system.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So I'm just going to ask you a question now on your manifesto.
Yeah.
So on it you said that you plan to increase the transparency of RAG donations.
Yeah.
And you'd like the data to be published monthly on the union website.
Yeah.
Why do you think this is a change that needs to be made?
I think it would create an accountability for like where the money has exactly gone. So like it goes right to the charity, but if we publish it on the website and make students and donors show that, like if we show the donors that, so it's gonna be more like they know where is it going and when is it going and what is it exactly for. So when they visit the RAG website page, so they know that money is going here and it's going to go here exactly, and this much has gone here. So they would know more about it, and I think that would increase the number of donations that we get.
Yeah, so I'm just clarifying. So it's showing the visibility of those who are donating to RAG, but also where that money will be going.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So another just general question about the role. So as RAG Chair, obviously, you'll be advocating for various charitable causes within the union. So I just want to ask you, what particular cause do you really care about, and how would you try and address it if you were to become Rag Chair?
I care about a lot of things, but mainly not a particular thing. I have a lot of things. I cannot choose one, to be honest. But if I had to choose one, I think I'd say like cancer that we are working with already, like young lives versus cancer. That's a big issue that we need to work more on that. So like right now, the young lives versus cancer, that's helping kids with cancer get medical treatments and things like that. But we also need to do a bit more research on that and how to eradicate that and stuff. So maybe charitable institutions that do that as well. So like support and stuff, yeah.
So of course, Young Lives versus Cancer, which is currently one of the union's allied charities. So would you like to continue that going into next year?
I would like to continue that.
Okay,
and
fantastic.
maybe add in some more and let the students decide as well. So that's what we do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just to return back to your manifesto, so on it you want to run weekly events to get more students engaged in RAG.
Yeah.
However, as we learned earlier, volunteering numbers are down at the moment, and due to the cost of living crisis, some students may not feel they have the time to commit to the events. So how would you try and attract students to these events and make sure it's worth their while?
Yeah, so I would take help of societies as well. I'll ask them to help me get more, spread more awareness about RAG and what are the charities that we we are providing money for. So I'm gonna take help of the societies, the clubs, and we're gonna talk to them more and more, and get yes.
So these weekly events, you think maybe each week it would be a different society?
We would be twinning up with charities and clubs as well, and it's gonna be completely for RAG as well. But in the beginning, we're gonna take some help from the societies and clubs, and then when we get more volunteers and stuff, and when I get to know more people, so maybe we could come up with new ideas to do a RAG only weekly event as well.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
So 130 Surrey volunteering graduates in 2023 will be leaving. Some of them have managed to reach thousands of hours of volunteering time at the union.
Yeah.
How do you think we can help volunteers who engage in RAG become more employable and apply these skills to their future careers?
So I think volunteering for RAG gives them a lot of skills by just doing that. So make them more employable. I would say that it depends. It again depends where they want to go, what they want to do, and what they're studying exactly, and what they want to do in their life. So it depends again. Like it would vary from person to person. But yeah, so like I could give an example. So like if someone wanna go into like charity and work at UN or UNICEF or somewhere, so that would be really beneficial. Like RAG would be really beneficial for them and working them. So like they could use up their degree and twin it up with the RAG volunteering, and then they could work for UNICEF or a charitable institution. And this is just one example. We could have a lot more examples for this as well.
So you think publicising, you know, how RAG can help you in future careers?
Yeah. We need to spread awareness about this, like how RAG could help you, and it will definitely help you with your employability because it looks really good on your CV as well. You working with charities and raising and giving. So yeah.
You also mentioned in your manifesto that you wanted to build on the previous foundations of RAG chairs.
Yeah.
Is there one specific idea that's currently been put in place by a previous incumbent that you'd like to continue forwards?
RAG Week is a really good idea. So RAG Week is when you have several different events where you, there are like 4 events that happened last year. So that's a really good thing that I would like to build upon and make and turn it into a festival or a concert or something. So that's on my manifesto as well. So like a RAG concert or like something. So I want to build that and expand it and create it, like make it even bigger this year.
I mean, you mentioned the RAG concert there. Do you want to just explain a bit more about how you sort of envision that?
So like we could either twin up with businesses or other charities and get a lot of, I don't know, like maybe these are just ideas at this point. There's nothing concrete, but maybe we could get a big musical artist or something, yeah, and who are really keen into the charities that we have partnered up with, and for that we could charge some like base amount, and it could be like there's Free Fest as well, but something like Free Fest, but for RAG, or either we could twin up with Free Fest or something. We could do a lot of things, yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
So another just sort of general question at the moment. So the cost of living crisis, as I've already mentioned, is bound to have an impact on charitable giving. So what can you do to encourage students to donate to charity, especially when they're obviously facing their own money worries?
So I've done some research about this. I thought you might ask this. So yeah, so there is a Guildford, no, there's a Surrey, wait, just pull it up. Just let me pull it up here. Okay, so we must support cost of living campaign that Surrey County Council has in place already to spread awareness about how you could support yourself while you live in Guildford and Surrey, all in all. And also like Surrey students are part of the Guildford community, and they should support the local charity. That's what I think. But it's hard when the cost of living is so high. So you must go to like the cost of living website of Surrey County Council, and you'll get a lot of information about how you could support yourself. And we must promote that on our website as well, on the USSU, and also like make posts about this. So how could you, So that's what the Surrey County Council has been doing, and it's an issue that we need to really think about and talk about.
Okay. So just sort of another sort of general question before we finish up. So do you think at the moment the students at Surrey know enough about the union's charitable activities?
They don't. That's the thing. I'm trying to spread awareness as much as I can. So like people do, but not a lot. So like I met people at Rubik's and people knew about RAG. I would say like 20% of them knew, but 80% of the people don't know about RAG. So we need to spread awareness about RAG, and this is something that we need to work on as soon as possible. This is really important.
It's quite timely because my next part to that question is how do you think you can increase students' sort of general awareness of what RAG does?
Social media. I've already started doing that. I got the glasses. I have it right here. So I'm going to show you. So this is like RAG for life. Just wear these. Okay. RAG for all. Yeah.
Do you think we can get these sort of like mass produced for every
Yeah, we could do this. So like I already on the Friday night I asked people, do you want to support RAG? And they said yes. So I like asked them to wear this and click picture, and I've already started promoting that on my Instagram, and now I've also like created a fundraising campaign on my Instagram already for like Young Lives vs Cancer. So I've already started working. Yeah. Go donate. Yeah. RAG for life. Yeah.
I would wear them myself, but my neutrality as chair forbids me from engaging in that activity, I'm afraid. So I think I just want to finish up with one more question.
I think what's coming.
Well, see, as RAG chair, you're going to sit in the community zone.
Yeah.
So I have a very simple question for you. Who are you backing to be the new VP community?
Oh man, that's.
And
no.
could the debate that's happening right after this one change your mind?
I think I know who like I want to support, but there are two guys that I've loved so much that really close to me. I don't know, but I cannot choose. I cannot. Like there are the only two guys that supported me. No, not the only two guys. The only two guys from the community VP. So like they've supported me a lot, and I cannot choose one. I'm so sorry for that. I cannot.
I cannot. Fence.
Yeah, okay. I cannot. They're so. David is so lovely. Rich is so lovely. I don't know what to do here. So I don't know. I love David. I love Rich. Yeah. I'm so sorry.
It's fine. It's a valid answer.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for all your answers tonight.
Yeah.
So we've got one more debate coming after this, which, as you know, is VP Community. But just before we do that, we're going to head right back to our pundits. And we'll be with you very soon.
Welcome back to Pundits Corner. I'm now joined by some new guests, as well as still got Tom with us. So we've got Gemma and James. So Gemma, what is your role or roles that you've had in the union, and how have you found working in the university community?
Oh gosh, how long we've got? So I started off my career in the union working on the zones. So I was a community zone member, followed by being VP community, followed by being president. Then I got the joy of working full-time and got to be on the support zone. And now I work in the university itself within campus services. So I work alongside Alan Sutherland, working on accommodation, catering, security and transport services at the university.
So quite a lot in there. But a lot of your roles come back to support. Would you say that come back to community? Sorry, would you say community is your kind of favourite zone?
Oh, it's a first love. It was my first love. It was always, it was where my first bit of joy came in the union and my first sort of intro to the union. So yeah, it'll always hold a special place in my heart, I think.
So we just heard from our RAG chair candidate, and he did amazing. Again, being up there on your own is really nerve-wracking. But one of the things you did as VP Community was actually bring RAG chair back.
Yes.
Why did you make that change? Why was it so important to you?
Yeah, I think raising and giving is a really important part of the university experience. And it's something that's quite historical in terms of universities, and RAG's always been something that universities have played quite a big part in. And I think I saw how other universities maybe were doing it at the time, and there's lots of very fun elements to fundraising that I think Surrey was missing. And we, years and years ago, when I first came to Surrey, it had quite a prominent rag community, and that kind of got lost a little bit, I think, in the noise of all the new things that get set up. And I wanted there to be a special place for it within the union and a way of it being a heart to the union. And that's what this role really, I felt, really would give back.
And clearly it's done things, because we were actually awarded this year Most Improved in Rag. We raised over £100,000 last year, so clearly that work has done something.
It's a lot, yeah. It's great to see.
Hello, James. Do you want to introduce yourself, your roles in the university, or what you are previously, and how have you found working in the university community?
So I'm James. I'm the University Sustainability Manager. I was formerly doing my PhD here based in industry, although I'm still finishing that. So I've been at the university now for about 5 years. I was an active member of committees of multiple societies over the past few years, but none this year. And working in the university community can be challenging. It's a wide range of people from very different backgrounds, all with very different priorities and all valid. And we have limitations on what we can and can't do in any given moment, especially within the time frame of a student year.
So one of the things I think that's reflected through the candidates is actually we've got quite a lot of postgraduate students running, particularly masters. Do you think postgraduates could be better represented by the union?
Definitely, but I think the biggest challenge is in getting postgraduates to actively participate and take part. This is something that's not just seen at Surrey, it was seen at my previous university as well. And the way they got around that is they had a dedicated VP for postgraduate, but it was a much larger university, and you have a lot of challenges to do with turnover. So if you're on a one-year master's, do you necessarily have the time to fully embed and absorb the community at the university and understand what's actually going on, what's there and what you can do before you then leave the year after? So I think there may be a bigger place for part-time postgraduates or PhDs, the ones who are here for 2, 3, 5 years, and then using that as a start point to lead the master's students as well.
Yeah, because quite a lot of our students running this year have only been here for a couple of days. Does that make you feel warm inside that there's so many students like running that have only been here for a couple of days?
I think it's great. I think it's lovely. It's amazing. I don't think I'd have that confidence though. Like my first week, I was still trying to work out like where my lecture was, let alone taking part in a whole massive activity and running in a Surrey Decides and getting up on a stage like that.
Yeah, I
mean, ingraining with the community straight away and getting involved with the student union, yeah, it's brilliant. I think it's absolutely brilliant.
I mean, from my perspective, I love to see it, but similar to you, I mean, I wasn't involved in the union until my second year. I didn't even know what it was. I don't think I understood it properly. So it's actually really nice to get the new students come in and having that newer perspective that we often miss out when we've got so many of the same officers running, which again, we're great to see because we love our keen beans, but it's nice to get some new faces. So as Sustainability Manager, we've seen the union have a lot of priorities in sustainability, and it's actually been voted top priority twice by the Make Your Change campaign. So what do you think why do you think sustainability is a reoccurring top priority for students at the moment?
There's a host of different drivers behind it. There was the Blue Planet effect in particular, and I think we're seeing the first few generations of students come through who have grown up with an understanding and an awareness of climate change and the impacts it can have. We've got international students who've arrived at the university from countries that are on a monthly basis seeing the impacts of climate change. Last year we had one of the most severe droughts the UK's ever seen. It didn't impact as much as some in the past have, but the real world implications are starting to hit home. And I think students are aware that if you don't deal with sustainability, not just climate change, but the broader remit, there won't be anything else that we can do afterwards. Everything will become more expensive, everything will become more difficult, and we may not have the world as we recognise it to operate within if we don't address these issues first.
I mean, that comes back to the cost of living crisis, which I think was strongly reflected through both of the community zone and the RAG chair debate. So, Tom, do students feel their social lives have been impacted by the cost of living crisis? Obviously, we spoke about accommodation earlier, but what we found, particularly coming out of Being Well Doing Well, is actually 37% of students are cutting back on that time they're going out.
Yes, absolutely. Cost of living crisis is draining a lot of funds that students would otherwise use for social events and potentially for getting involved in the community. Absolutely. Gas prices, electric prices are going up. They're the main ones we sort of see, and those funds are being allocated there rather than, like you say, going out and spending them doing social activities. Yeah, of course it will have an impact.
Yeah, and actually you've taken quite a big role in Hoods Residential to provide some free events like quiz nights and things like that. Do you think that's helping, put your residents at ease?
Yes, absolutely. We try to get out there and provide these sort of bits and pieces for students, and everyone can be doing more. But that's the community side of what we do, is getting involved with the VP community and the community team here, to try and give, like you say, the quiz night was a brilliant success. We had 30 or 40 students turn up, and it was completely free, and they could get involved. And yeah, it sort of balances out then with the cost of living issues that they're having. Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel like that's been a big priority for the support and community zones in particular, but actually the whole union, in providing more sort of free, inclusive events. And actually, Gemma, coming back to your time as VP Community, you probably saw a lot of events. Do you think the type of events have changed between what you saw when you were implementing things and what students are gravitating towards now?
Yeah, completely. I mean, we're seeing it in just even the data we're getting through of what students like to do now, and I can just see it even from the times and the shift in times from when I was studying to now. I think the days aren't now focused on going out to nightclubs. Students are so much more attentive to all areas of their sort of mental well-being and their physical well-being. We're seeing uptakes in students wanting to attend gyms and really playing a part in their physical well-being so much more than I think we used to. And students don't want to just get lots of cheap booze anymore. They want to see all sort of range of activities to take part in. They want to be able to challenge themselves mentally, physically, and I think which is just amazing. So it's a challenge, I think, for the VP communities now. They've actually got to think a lot more about what are they doing and how are they doing it and how are they making sure they're actually, you've got a nightclub there and the nightclub's important, but how are you doing everything around that? How are you making sure that there's enough activities around that and you're not just using that as the one sole thing to bring students in? You've got to engage them in so many other ways.
Yeah, and I think we as you said, we can't just rely on rubrics anymore. So a lot of things came out about charity. Obviously, we heard from our RAG chair. James, how can we sustain charitable giving during the cost of living crisis?
Charitable giving doesn't necessarily have to be financial. So a large part of that came up with RAG and with a lot of the candidates was volunteering. You may not have the financial ability to donate money, but you might be able to donate some of your time, whether that's 2 hours to do a litter pick, which took place a couple of weeks ago, whether that's, we discussed previously, volunteering to plant trees on campus and in the surrounding area, or volunteering to go out into the community with various support groups and networks. You don't have to donate money to still be donating during a cost of living crisis. On the flip side, if students have got 50p spare, £1 spare when they're doing their weekly shop, if they pick up a long life, any food product, there are donation points at every supermarket, and I believe there are some on campus as well.
There are some on campus, yeah.
So if that week they feel they've got 50p to spare, that may mean the difference for someone else, whether they can eat or not. So
I do often find that RAG is so associated with charity, but Gemma, do you think that giving aspect of that, giving that time and that energy, do you think that needs promoting a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the big thing that I think RAG maybe sometimes misses out on, is it's about raising money, but it's also about giving your time back to the community, and that's what the whole point of it's meant to be. It's meant to be about going out there, and even if it's helping another charity with just providing some extra volunteers to give them some extra support, or going out into Tesco's dressed up as superheroes to unpacking bags, whatever it is they can do to just help give back to the community, help those who are in more need than they are, that's the point of it. And I think anything you can do, even if it's only an hour a month, it's still better than doing absolutely nothing. And if you think about the 15,000, 17,000 students we have on this campus, if they all just gave 1 hour a month, that would be phenomenal to this community and to Guildford widely. So just realising that a little bit here and there can make a difference is big for RAG, I think.
Well, maybe that'll be a new job for our VP community candidates. And with that, we're back to the VP community debate.
Please welcome to the stage your chair for the VP community debate, Denny Addis.
Hello again, everybody. I hope you're not sick of me by now. And I hope we're all awake and ready for the last debate of the night. Woo! So we've heard from all of the community zone candidates and the RAGJ candidates, but who will you choose to lead them? Please give a huge welcome to our candidates for VP Community.
Please welcome to the stage your candidates for the VP community.
Hello, thank you for joining me. I'm sure you know the drill by now. We're going to start with the classic question. In 30 seconds, could you please introduce yourself and tell us why you're running to be VP Community? Could we start with Matt, please?
Ready? Hi guys, I'm Matt. I'm running for VP Community again as I want to see a change in how the Students' Union runs its community zone. I've seen Rubik's sort of fall from being an amazing venue to sort of being a bit subpar, and I want to sort of reinvest and revitalise Rubik's to make it the venue it was once again. Apart from Rubik's, I also want to focus on sustainability with reusable cup schemes, try and reduce waste within the university and the union, and also to focus on more of the community things that I worked on during the community zone, such as more lighting up around Guildford and also increasing the night bus frequency so people can get home safe at night. And thank you.
Thank you. Can we hear from Rich next, please?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Rich. Some people know me as Thick Jesus. Don't know why. I'm a current postgrad student at the Uni of Surrey. I'm a social sec for the Powerlifting and Weightlifting Society, and I feel like, thank you, I feel like that helps with the Rubik's side and event side of the position, but I'm also interested in sustainability and safety, things that we've had to do within my club throughout my various other positions as a committee member. Thanks.
Last but not least, can we hear from David?
Hello everyone, my name is David, Master Student Human Resources Management. In my placement year, President of the Nigerian Society, Student Volunteer for Welfare Watch, Wellbeing Champion. I see a huge potential with expanding the range of events we have for students on campus, particularly for our diverse student community. I'm passionate about people and people experiences, and I'm here to represent, students, basically to promote sustainability, social responsibility among the local community here in Guildford, promote student enterprise and student employability. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we've heard a little bit from everyone. Let's dig into some of these manifesto points. I will start with Matt again. In your manifesto, you discuss refurbishing Harry's Bar and investing in the basement. Have you looked into the costs of these refurbishments?
I haven't specifically looked into the costs, as that's something that's quite time-consuming and requires quotes from constructors, which is something they're not willing to do if you don't actually have a project on the table. However, I'm well aware that it is a high capital investment to invest in the building, but this building has not had a refurbishment for quite a long time. I'm not talking about the whole building as well, but Harry's Bar, which is increasingly attempted to be used as a place for screening sports and for events beyond just Rubik's, and it can't really escape the fact it is just a bar within a club. It's not really the venue that people want to visit. You can't escape the fact that it's in a nightclub and it doesn't really feel particularly inviting, especially when you've got the option of going to the other places around campus. Like you could go to Waits or Bench Bar to watch sports, which is a much nicer place to watch sports and more drinks variety and stuff. Like they have tried to do stuff, but I think ultimately for it to achieve what it wants to and to be able to host the events that Rubik's could be holding and Harry's Bar could be holding, it needs some investment to make it more attractive and a more enjoyable place to be. And it has the potential to be in there, because I don't know if anyone's visited it during the daytime. There's a lovely view over Guildford from the windows there, and it's lost with the current setup because you're facing away from that. People can't really socialise particularly nicely in there. And with the basement as well, a lot of clubs and societies like to use the basement for their things like their own club nights, or for example like Bandsock uses it for practice and stuff. But again, that's a venue that hasn't had investment in for a while, and it's sort of fallen down a bit. Like it's not really a great place to use for clubbing. The sound system isn't really up to standard now, and it's quite difficult to use. Plus the lighting is very limited. So if people want to use it as a clubbing venue, it doesn't really get much use. So it sort of puts people off. And some clubs and societies are going to other places in Guildford, like the nightclubs in town centre. So if you put the money in, people will then use it, which will then make a return on investment with more clubs and societies using it. And ultimately, the student union is here for the students and the clubs and societies. So there's no reason for them to be going off campus. Yeah.
Thank you. So, so I've been told that new furniture for the project suggested could cost somewhere near £60,000. Having come out of COVID and a year of the cost of living crisis, where do you propose we could get the money from? What would you cut in order to provide these refurbishments?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned about just coming out of COVID and such, because just before I go into the point, I think it's an interesting point to bring up that coming out of COVID, I think people's standards have raised now for where they go. Having been stuck indoors for the best part of a year and a half, people don't want to go to subpar venues and such. Not to say that Rubik's is a subpar venue, but I think other places are overtaking it. And Rubik's does a lot of things well, but I think in some places it just needs a bit of investment. I would make use of the zone budget in order to afford some of these things, and also hopefully look to the university. The university itself has done a lot of refurbishments recently, which they've seen great payoff with, and if we could appeal to them and the departments that pay for stuff like the Hive and the Nest, which they've seen more chill-out spaces and more relaxation spaces benefit them, then I think trying to make the funds meet would be feasible. And also, it doesn't have to be a complete refurbishment of the whole building. It could just be more minor enhancements if the funding wasn't available, because there are smaller things that can be done in order to make the venue a nice place to be in.
So in the recent Pulse survey at the start of this academic year, student satisfaction with the student union venues actually rose from 81% to 86%, so an increase since last year, indicating that students are already happy with the venues on offer. Do you think that this is a priority for students, considering the costs involved?
Which years were those? Which years were the polls done?
The most recent one was September just gone, and the year before was the September before that.
So the surveys were undertaken by the students then. So that's when they gave the answers.
Yes.
I am surprised by that, considering there's been little changing. If anything, there's less on offer now that the marquee has closed. I would be interested to find out more if there's more information available from the Pulse survey about what they like about the venues or don't like about the venues. Because from what I've heard from many people I've spoken to on the ground, people miss things like the marquee and miss having a space that's more relaxed and more open, not like sort of closed in and windowless like Rubik's. Like people like a place that they can go to and, for example, watch football or just socialise more casually. For example, somewhere like Waits or something like that, which there is demand for on campus. And so it surprises me a lot that people are saying that the venues have improved when nothing much has changed in between those 2 years, apart from the marquee closing.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll let you have a rest now, and we will move on to Rich for our next manifesto question. So one of your main manifesto points is to increase the safety in Rubik's. Rubik's already has many measures in place to ensure the safety of students on a night out, which hopefully we should be seeing on the screen soon. There we go. Including but not limited to 42 CCTV cameras, search on entries, a dedicated first aid team on site, welfare watch, and you can ask bar staff for a bottle stopper or for spike testing. So what would you do in addition to these measures that are already in place to make Rubik's even safer for students?
Okay, brilliant. So my first one, I think chronologically in my manifesto, is just making the bottle stoppers just more signposted. When I was thinking about this role, I spoke to a lot of people what sort of things they want changed in Rubik's. And a lot of people said drink stoppers. And we have that.
Yes.
But it's not signposted. And it's a very good safety measure. But people not knowing that it's there and then in turn not using it kind of limits how much it helps make the uni safer. Another thing, the third point in my manifesto under safety, would be drugs testing kits. That's as in for recreational drugs that people may do. Whilst that can seem as controversial to the uni because the argument would be it promotes drugs, we've seen in other countries and other unis, places that have readily available drug testing kits helps limit the amount of damage that can be done by recreational drugs that will be done either way. So that would be the next big thing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank
So just a bit of a sideways follow-up on the bottle stoppers. One of your other key manifesto themes is sustainability. Would these bottle stoppers be sustainable?
See, I think that's a brilliant question because earlier today I was having a conversation about straws.
Yes.
'Cause, straws aren't particularly sustainable even. But I think obviously you need to see where you can source them from and what budget dependent, what is the best option for bottle stoppers. And if we can get fully sustainable, maybe even recyclable ones, made from pre-used materials that can then be recycled, that'd be the best option.
Yes.
I think, unfortunately, budget constraints would limit the options that we have, but that is fully something that I'd be interested in.
Cool. Yeah. Interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've actually already answered a few of my follow-up questions. Another thing that you did mention under your safety bracket is the increasing night bus availability.
Yes. Yeah.
Would this be existing bus services that are sort of already running Guildford or a whole new service? Sort of, have you spoken to anyone about how you would go about putting this in place?
So I know that obviously we do currently have bus services for the uni, But with that, I think that's entirely dependent on what the supply is available for it, just for consistency and frequency. It'd be far more convenient if we can go with Stagecoach, our current provider. But if need be, and we were to go to a different third party, that could be a possibility. But it's just a contracting issue. We know what we need. It's just who can provide this for us without getting in the way of current contracts the university has with bus services. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Rich.
You're welcome.
Moving on now to David. In your manifesto, you say that you want to leverage existing partnerships with local community support groups to ensure the safety and protection of our student community around Guildford and other local communities in Surrey. Which local community support groups are you referring to, and how would you leverage these partnerships?
Okay, thank you. Very good question. Quite a number. First of all, I'm looking at Angels. I think the Surrey Angels that go around at night. And particularly the reason I came up with this idea was if you want to ensure student safety here in Surrey, first of all, you need to find a way to give back to the community. Because the community need to have that feeling that you're part of us. And then, obviously, if they see you, doing things for them. For example, at the Lita Peak, myself, Liam, and a couple of other candidates had the last time, a couple, local neighbors around came around saying thank you. And they really appreciated the, gesture. And I felt like if anything was going to happen to you around that community, knowing fully well that students of Surrey have been really, really, giving their best to the community. You rally around these students and then provide safety for them. Do whatever you can to ensure that they are safe within that community. So essentially, what I'm trying to build here is a community where everybody feels like they belong. Students feel like they belong here in Surrey, and then the people in Surrey feel like the students also belong here, and we work together to create a better community. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you very much. So in that manifesto point, you specify existing partnerships. Are there any new partnerships that you'd like to build that you might have in mind?
Personally, Welfare Watch really stays on campus. I see a collaboration with external, obviously we have existing partnerships with the Surrey Police, the Angels outside there, some other local communities, local watch groups outside Guildford, outside the town center, at the town center. So my thinking is, Welfare Watch, as a volunteer myself, I see the job we do, on a daily basis, and we are quite restricted to the kind of things we could do. So if we could extend the partnership beyond, maybe not Welfare Watch going outside of campus, just find a way to say, you know what, we're handing over this to, you guys. We have done our bit here on campus. The safety of our students outside of campus is going to be in your hands. And then if you have any issues, reach out to us, and then we'll reach out to the student, the security here on campus to support our students as much as possible. So basically, we can get things done out there if we really want to. We just have to, be conscious to do them. Yeah.
Brilliant. So just the last follow-up I have on this point.
Absolutely.
So you say you want to ensure the safety and protection of our student community around Guildford and other local communities in Surrey. When you say other local communities in Surrey, which communities are you referring to, and what relevance do these communities have to Surrey students?
The school is primarily located here in Guildford, but as a Johnny Walker myself, I've walked around a couple communities here, done a couple older shots, Farnham and stuff like that. There are students who live here, who come to this campus here, who come from Woking.
Yes.
Do you understand? So, there are students, we can't abandon them because they are not in Guildford. We need to ensure the safety wherever they are. Which brings me to the next point on my, manifesto, bettering our community. It's reintroducing the community volunteer framework.
Yes.
There are students also who live in Woking. We could just leverage this student community wherever they live to say, you know what, this group of students live in Woking, this group of students live in Aldershot. Just find some volunteering framework that works for everyone, and students representing students, within that local community will ensure safety. There's this thing about if we go together, we go far, but if you go, by yourself, you probably, there's a limit to how far you can go. So my job is just to ensure that students are supporting students to ensure safety. Not necessarily, there probably wouldn't be local support groups to, extend beyond Guildford, but there are students wherever we find these people. We just find students to support, each other.
Cool. Thank you very much, David. So this next question is for everyone. As VP community, you might be faced with difficult decisions about, where to allocate your budget, what to prioritise. So we've got a little example scenario. So we have Glitter Bomb once a month in Rubik's for our LGBTQ+ community, but it's only attended by a small number of students and sometimes doesn't cover its own costs. Do you think we should still run it, and why? So I'm going to start on my left this time. Back to David, if you'd like to go first.
As a student of management, I'll say no. First of all, if you're running a loss, as a business, the business is really not, for that kind of thing, it's really not viable. But, obviously, you have to do your own research. And the research has shown that we're running at a loss. We run it once a month. As much as we really want to be, inclusive, this, event is rarely attended by the students it's meant for. So first of all, we need to drop it, go back to the drawing board. What is hindering engagement? Solve the problem for engagement, then come back to the table to say, maybe this set of people, that you're doing these things for, don't exactly need the glitter bombs. See, it's just a case of solving a problem of, malaria with, should I say Panadol or contraceptives. Do you understand? You need to understand what the problem is, solve that problem with, the right solution. Drop it first of all, go back to the drawing board, redraw, and then come, reintroduce whatever you want to reintroduce afterwards.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, can we hear from Rich, please?
So, first of all, I think if I was to be lucky enough to be voted in my manifesto, I've got something about inclusivity with the LGBTQ+ community.
Yes.
If that was something that I could get to work, it may limit the need that we'd have for events such as Glitter Bomb. So because of that, maybe we could phase out Glitter Bomb if there's things that we get more engagement with that cover their costs and also cause the representation we're trying to get for Glitter Bomb. However, if my manifesto aside, if that's an issue we currently have with Glitter Bomb, maybe just decreasing the frequency instead of getting rid of it entirely and just making it more of a scarce event. So there's more interest, more people will come when it's an event that happens. It's not just once a month. I think that could help. And then from there, we could see if it gets enough engagement. If not, think what other solutions we could do to increase inclusivity for the LGBTQ+ community, and then go from there.
Thank you very much, Rich. So the question is, we have Glitter Bomb once a month for our LGBTQ+ community, but it's only attended by a small number of students and sometimes doesn't cover its own costs. Do you think we should still run it, and why?
Okay, so I know this is an example that you're using, but as far as I'm aware, at least since I've been on the community zone a year ago, the Glitter Bomb is an externally run event, and so little risk actually falls on the union to provide that event. More falls on the risk of the organiser, so there isn't actually much there. It's mainly the bar staff, which in the overall cost of an event is not much. But I would still keep this event because it is serving a part of our student community, and it's still attended by a decent number of students, and I've heard a lot of good reviews about it, and a lot of people have attended it myself and I enjoyed it the night quite a lot. And it provides something different to the lineup that we currently have, and having these sort of different events, external events, provides something different for some students that might not come to Rubik's otherwise. And at the end of the day, we are here as a service to the students. It's not here as just a purely profit-making organisation. It is a not-for-profit business and a charity at the end of the day. So providing something that students enjoy and students want to go to, I think is the more important thing than just making profit out of a business. And also to provide more collaborations, for example, with Glitter Bomb. When Glitter Bomb does a citrus takeover, I think that's always a good idea because it provides the normal weekly cycle with something that's slightly different, and Glitter Bomb can then integrate with that and get higher numbers. And so any event sort of like that, I think trying to integrate it into the weekly citrus or flirts works as well.
Thank you very much. So we're going to do another round of manifesto questions, hopefully slightly less in-depth this time, but we're going to go to David again, if that's all right. So on your manifesto, many of your manifesto points talk about continuing existing projects, reintroducing a previous initiative, or building on something that is already in place. What new ideas would you like to bring to the role of VP Community?
First of all, I firmly believe in continuity, because if every government comes in and scraps whatever the incubator has done, honestly, we'll just be churning out projects and not exactly understanding the viability of the projects that this incubator have done. First of all, that's it. That's why you have a couple continuing, reintroducing, for example, the Rubik's gold cards or black cards that Izzy or Amina brought up at their time. The Tesco underpass, that the funding was secured, we couldn't, continue the painting. I hope to really do that if elected. That's the essence of that. However, my personal, campaign is, I have two things which speaks to the diverse. Obviously, University of Surrey has a cultural, multicultural reality. There's nothing we can do about it. We're multicultural in nature. First of all, I want to introduce, maybe not introduce, but come up with a jukebox kind of party where you come to Rubik's, you live on your phone, you could request for a song. It will still be dependent on the DJ to come, there's a vibe, obviously, but you can see your song displayed live on the screen on Rubik's. You've requested, and the DJ will cue your song at the right point. So it makes you feel like you have an input into what is being played here in Surrey. And then when the community zone officers came on here, I see that a lot of what they want is ensuring that student, theme or led parties happen in Surrey. So that's just that's one. Then Spotify, Apple Music, playlist. If we can't exactly satisfy all of you here in at the club, we have a Spotify playlist where you can listen to diverse. Everybody will claim their music is lovely, from wherever you come from. But if we have this hub where everybody can listen to everybody's music from where we come from, it provides that, that level of diversity and inclusivity. I could still hear my music, whether I'm at Rubik's or not. I could still learn about, European music, African music, wherever I'm, I don't want to just say, we'll come to Rubik's, because what's the viability that I come to Rubik's? Your vibe, is exactly what really Rubik's needs that night. So bringing these things where everybody could still have fun, irrespective, regardless of, whatever happens at Rubik's or not. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. So back to Rich. You mentioned your manifesto point about access to free and anonymous drug testing kits and safer use information to aid harm reduction. Where and how would this service be available, and how would you ensure these remained anonymous?
Okay, thank you. So first of all, there are various charities that I'd like to be in contact with if I were to get the role, such as The Loop, who provide, I think their main thing is off-site drug testing, but there are various other charities that you can go to that will provide either drug testing kits or different site drug testing. So in terms of facilitating that, it would be through an external party.
Okay.
And because of that, I think that helps aid the anonymity. As the main thing I think students would be concerned about for the anonymity isn't not anyone ever knows, but more specifically, authorities at the university and authorities for the country, police, etc. So I think through them, we can help provide some anonymity, since it's not a part of the uni, and it won't then be able to get back to security or who's responsible for your accommodation. And then in terms of where, this will very much depend when I speak to the university, because that's, it's their uni. I can't tell them where to put things. But I think places like the Centre of Wellbeing, which is nice and almost tucked away in campus, helps in terms of that physical, no one's seeing you as you go there. But also the Hive may be a good point for pamphlets and less intensive things. And just have it stationed on campus at places we already have, but also doing it with other parties so that students don't get concerned about, or what if X, Y, or Z knows. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Back to you, Matt. One of your ideas is to introduce an interactive calendar on the union website with all club and society sessions. With over 160 clubs and societies and counting, how will you achieve this?
So the union website is sort of halfway there at the moment. They've got a calendar on there, but it only has like Rubik's events and EGMs, AGMs, and a few other union organised events. That calendar is quite interactive, but you could make it more interactive. So my proposal would be that clubs and societies can submit their sort of weekly calendar or any special events they have, which then get input onto the system. Then you can click onto that calendar, see, for example, just what's on today, or click onto the more detailed calendar and filter it down by, are you looking for sports? Are you looking for certain kinds of societies, like academic society or interest society?
or just look for specific sports. So, for example, I'm in the running club. If I wanted to find out what running was doing today, I'd just type in running and see what was on the list there. Because currently the system is you go and have to go find quite often the Instagram accounts or sometimes Facebook accounts to actually see what's going on. And once term starts, quite often the time that the committee have to make posts about what's going on each day is a bit limited. And if changes happen throughout the semester, they're often not communicated, because if you join at the start, then you'll probably end up in a group chat or knowing how to find out about changes and stuff. But if you want to join midway through the semester, it's usually the information's out of date. People don't have time to update things like the websites and their Instagrams and stuff like that, and so just usually message people, tell them at a session. So it's quite hard to find out. So if you have like a streamlined calendar where you can easily just make a change and people can see this is what's on, this society's doing this at this time, come along, or it costs this much, I think that'd be really useful for everyone, and you can increase society and club participation as well.
Thank you very much, Bat. So, in the interest of time, just from now on, if we could keep our answers reasonably brief, but we're going to go to a speed round anyway. So it's an all play, and we're going to have a quick fire agree or disagree round. So you'll see in front of you a little agree, disagree paddle. I'm going to give you a few statements, and I'd like you to just let us know whether you agree or disagree. So our first one is, agree or disagree, last entry to Rubik's should be later than 11:30 p.m. Interesting, thank you. So the next one is, Rubik's is safer than a night out in town. Are we all in agreement? Good work, Rubik's. Next up, it's not possible for the union to run events that cater to every student's preference. Agree or disagree? Ooh. Got a couple of disagrees and an agree. And finally, volunteering is important to students. Agree or disagree? Ooh, so we've got agreement all round. So focusing in on that last point then. RAG and volunteering are a significant part of the VP community role, but did not feature heavily in this year's VP community manifestos. Just last year, the union won the Most Improved RAG Award and the National Student Fundraising Awards. How will you work with your RAG chair to continue expanding on this and encourage students to take part in RAG and Surrey volunteering? So if we can have less than 1 minute answers, could we start with Matt, please?
So I think the role of RAG falls significantly to the RAG chair and what they do with it. And I think from the previous debate we just saw, there's a huge number of ideas and a huge amount of work to do. So I think just working closely with the RAG chair on their ideas and implementing their ideas, giving them the time and the ability to do that, is the key thing. That we have the role, and hopefully the emerging RAG committee, if that's still happening, to come up with these ideas and implement these ideas. And I think just letting the RAG chair do that and working with them to enable it is the key thing.
Thank you very much. Now, Rich, same question.
I think, first of all, I think some of my manifesto ideas do involve volunteering, but not explicitly. But I think working with whoever will be in the RAG chair position next year, I think that will be very important for them. So just liaising with them and then the current bodies we have that require volunteering and just working that into the plans throughout both the community zone and also the rest of the union, just to ensure that there is a healthy amount of volunteering and put towards good use.
Thank you very much, Rich.
Yeah, so I'll start with the Surrey volunteering. I understand a couple of students. It's not about volunteering for students. It's about recognizing the efforts they put in. So first of all, I'll be working with Surrey volunteers to maybe an award after meeting with the union staff, that speaking with them, I recognize that rewarding volunteers is really key, because that is the way you could attract more volunteers to come in, and those hours should go into your HEAR at the end of the year to show that, you're much more employable, you're using your hours for good things. That's one. Then I would really like to see Rag Raid, where we could go beyond the university walls to show the community again that was socially responsible as students, and we can cater to causes that are dear to them as much as they're dear to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, another general question. As VP Community, you'll lead the union's agenda on sustainability and advocate for the environment in the university and the local community. Are you committed to sustainability, and what would your practical focus be? Could we start with Matt, please?
I mean, sustainability has always been a huge thing for my manifestos, and also in my just general life, trying to cut down on waste and also reduce energy. And a key part of my manifesto is the reusable hot and cold drinks cups. So currently, the university's actually gone backwards on their sustainability when it comes to their cafes and such. For example, Hillside at the moment, you can't even get a non-takeaway cup. If you drink in, it's in a takeaway cup, which is pretty shocking. So I want to work with the university to implement a reusable takeaway cup scheme. So this would be where if you get a takeaway drink, currently a lot of people would assume that it's just sort of you bring your own cup and you get like discount stuff, but about 1% of customers do that at the moment. So it's not really a scheme that works. So instead, if you provide everyone with a cup that you can then take back later or drop off at a collection point on the campus, and it then gets reused instead of getting wasted, this would cut down massively on the single-use plastics and single-use paper cup wastage, and that could go for like cold and hot drinks. And so that's my key focus for sustainability at the moment. And it's a scheme I've seen in place in other places, and the university is sort of the perfect environment with that, with people coming back constantly to the same venue.
Thank you very much. Rich, same question.
Brilliant,
sustainability.
So for sustainability, I'd like to think that I am fairly committed to it, both in personal life but also in my manifesto. The main way that I like to bring it about in my manifesto is via transport, whether that be the more regular buses, just that'll cut down the carbon footprint of the university students, as well as the more accessible biking for students, whether that be rentals or of your own bikes, just to cut down the overall carbon footprint. And on top of that, another thing would be reintroducing the university's garden, which we have. A lot of students aren't aware, but we have a garden. There's been talk about it being reallocated, but there are currently people manning it. I think that will help, especially in tandem with the talk of bringing bees to campus, help increase biodiversity and then further the greenness of our university.
Thank you very much. Same again, David, please. Yes. So, as VP Community, you'll lead the union's agenda on sustainability and advocate for the environment to the university and the local community. Are you committed to sustainability, and what would your practical focus be?
Yes, I'm committed to sustainability, and I quite understand the current incumbent VP Community is still yet working to roll out this student hub for swap shops, food co-op, and that is still, ongoing. I intend, like I said, to continue. I mean, it's not rolled out yet, so my plan is to continue that. And I really like the point on Mitch's manifesto about vaping, recycled vaping points. It's really interesting, and we will, if I get elected, I'll be working with him to ensure that those are done. The university is already big on sustainability already. I intend to continue all of that and work with the PTOs to ensure that we commit to the university sustainability project. I mean, as a university, we have an institute of sustainability. So just work with Professor Lorenzo and ensure that everything is working hand in hand and in consent. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Cool. So another quick one for everyone. We've got a sheet of paper in front of everyone. Just a quick one. If you could just write down on the piece of paper in front of you, which zone would you have run for if the community zone wasn't an option? So just quick answers, top of your head. And then just give me, are we all ready? If you want to show your answers. So we've got, if everyone wants to show their answers. So we've got activity, and what's yours, David? Voice. Good zone. So, if you are elected VP Community, how would you like to collaborate with the zone you've got written down? Could we start with Matt, please?
So I think community and activity are probably the closest two zones and the ones that collaborate the most as it is. Community, obviously being a community role, involves volunteering and going out into the community and stuff like that. And societies often do the same thing. I mean, each society is made up of at least 3 volunteers already. And so that is already at the heart of a society. And a lot of societies raise money for RAG and want to do more within the community. So I think working with societies on that and working with the VP activity on that is a crucial element of the community zone to increase RAG participation and increase volunteering, whether that be from promoting their campaigns or promoting their volunteering efforts on site volunteering. And yeah, I mean, there's already been a huge amount of work done this year, especially with the GiveStar platform that they've introduced. So I want to see more stuff like that take place, make it easier for societies to raise money for charity.
Thank you very much, Matt. Your turn, Bridge. How would you like to collaborate with the activity zone if you are elected VP Community?
Brilliant, thank you. So for the activity zone, since a lot of that is societies and clubs, I think societies and clubs are a great way of getting students involved in both student-led events as well as volunteering, something that is very important for the community zone, especially things such as like, in terms of overall volunteering, like Welfare Watch, which requires constantly more volunteers. I think getting societies and clubs involved with that more so than the current, I can't remember exactly the numbers, but that for STARS, and then for events and sustainability, anything that requires students' inputs, I feel like that is a great way to reach current students.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Finally, David, if you are elected VP Community, how would you like to collaborate with the Voice Zone?
First of all, I would like to say that as students, we're here for one reason, academics, first of all. And if students do not feel like their voice has been heard as it relates to academics, they will not engage with your socials. So you need to be, sure that, you need to show them that you're speaking for them when it comes to academics. Even from the poll survey, it says 32% of students do not feel like they have enough time because they spend that time on independent study. So I would love to work with the Voice Zone to, speak on behalf of students to ensure that they have adequate time for, there's something we say, work-life balance, basically, I mean, there's really not much balance, but work-life integration, where they can study and party and have fun at the same time. So speak for them, make awareness, and then let them have fun at the same time. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you so much. So thank you so much, guys. You've been doing amazingly. We've got one last question, which is one that I'm sure we all expect. From their campaign so far, which presidential candidate would you most like to work with? And is there any part of their manifesto that you'd be particularly interested in collaborating with them on? Quick answers for these, if we could. Could we start with David?
I don't think there's an argument here or a contest. I would be voting for Jo, because first of all, her work ethic is crazy. I've never seen anyone that works as hard as Jo works, and she's really supported a couple of the activities for my society. And not being biased, I see her work, and I'll tell her any day, anytime, Jo, you have my vote. My society has your, gives their vote also, and she's rebuilding the community. She's rebuilding the union. Her manifesto and mine aligns a lot around safety, ensuring sustainability, continuing the works, and why not? She's the incumbent community, stepping up to president, and I step into community.
Thank you so much. Rich, can we hear from you?
Not to sound like a sheep, but also Jo. I feel like a lot of people will be saying that across the next few days, but Jo, she's done brilliant in community and her manifesto is looking great. I think especially for someone running for community, the linear integration we could have for swap meets between the president position to the VP community and then the community zone would be great. I think just amazing overall. So, Joe.
Thank you very much. Last but not least, Matt.
And unfortunately, I don't think I can pick between the two candidates because they're both two incredibly strong candidates, both with different reasons why I think they'd make a great candidate. For example, Joe has been here as VP Community already and already started some great work. Some of the things on my manifesto are similar to some of the things she's been working on already, and continuing in those footsteps would be an amazing thing to do and continue the great work she started. And equally, Semsu has also got some great points in the manifesto, of which line up with my manifesto, such as bringing in new student club nights and stuff like that, a few other things. So I don't think I can pick between the two. Both would be incredible to work with, and I think they've got two really strong candidates.
Thank you very much, Matt. So, thank you so much, all of you, for joining me. You've done amazing. And thank all of you for tuning in and coming along. It's now down to the pundits to close the evening. And do remember to come back tomorrow for the activity zone positions. Thank you so much.
Hello and welcome back to our last Pundits of the evening. We've just heard from our three amazing VP community debate candidates. They did really well. Gemma, what topics stood out for you in that debate?
Well, I think it was actually really clear sustainability was massive for this year, which isn't a surprise. I think year on year we've seen that become an increasing part of the student community and what they care about. So. But it was really quite prominent in that debate, I think. But yeah, it's nice to see, I think, for students.
Yeah. And James, on the sustainability front, do you think that sustainability, is difficult to upkeep when we've got the current cost of living crisis? Obviously, some cost of living pledges, they fit into sustainability, whereas some basically go against them.
Well, it all comes down to what you define as your time period. There are very, very few sustainable options that are actually more expensive in the long run. So in almost all instances, it almost always ends up cheaper to do the sustainable option, whether that's because directly over 10 years you save money, or because by not doing it, you're damaging the climate, and then the costs of remediating later will be worse than what you've saved by using the cheaper option in the short term.
And it's great to see three passionate candidates who all really care about sustainability. I love that the Community Hub got a shout out there. That's something Joe and I are working on at the moment. Tom, what stood out to you in the debate?
Yeah, definitely sustainability. I think particularly looking off campus and looking at how we can develop our private residential houses and work with landlords, particularly to make sure our houses are more sustainable. There are government things coming in. The EPC, the energy performance certificates, are being capped, so you have to have a certain standard housing. That will be a law, but it's also something students can look out for when they are moving off campus to make sure that their property meets current standards. So yeah, sustainability seems the hot topic this year.
Yeah, and do you think that will cause more challenges for students who want to live in private accommodation in Guildford, or do you think there's other challenges that they're facing a bit more?
There are a lot of challenges. As we touched on earlier, there's a lot. What I would come back to fundamentally is there's a lot of resource and specialist knowledge at the university and with the student union that students can get access to. It's just, in my opinion, more about communicating to them early on that these resources are available and getting them engaged with the resources to make moving off campus as easy and stress-free as possible.
Quite a lot of the candidates have a big, strong push for rubrics on their manifesto and events, and quite focused on, for example, Harry's Bar. You use Harry's Bar for events. Yes. Do you think it's fit for purpose at the moment?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. For what we use it for, it's quite a blank canvas. We can just use it as a space, as it is. It was a quiz night that we hosted. Yes, of course, it can be redesigned and remodelled. It's going to be a case of budgets and necessity for what we need. It's been nothing but perfect, but I can see why it could possibly need a freshen up.
And actually, a lot came out on the glitter bomb topic. And Gemma, do you think it's a bad thing or a good thing to try to appeal to everyone? Is it impossible, or can you find a mid-ground?
Well, I think it's important the union represents everybody, and I think that's always going to be a pivotal part of any role as a sabbatical officer. But I think they've got to challenge that question. It's a really good question, because I think actually that is a challenge as a sabbatical officer that you'll always have, is that debate between making sure you're doing events that represent people and that the students can go to and the students feel are inclusive, but having to then team that with the budgetary side of being a sabbatical officer, and it's a big part of being a SAB. You are a trustee of the union, and I think that gets forgotten a lot. So, you are the person who's meant to be making sure the finances work. So can you afford to run an event at a loss? Great if you can, but is that the right thing to be doing? Are you spending the money in the right way? And I think as a SAB, they've got a lot to think about there and a lot to weigh up, and it's a challenge every year, I think. But they seem to have some really interesting opinions on that, and some brave opinions as well. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how they might play out over the year and what their decisions will be when they have to make it.
Yeah, they were all very good at articulating their opinions as well. I think, for some of them, yes, they may have sat on the bench for some decisions, but all of them at least made strong decisions at one point. Another venue question, I guess, the marquee came up, and obviously we can't run the marquee now. But what do you think was good about the marquee in terms of the venue it was? What are students feeling they're missing out on now? Yeah.
So what was good with the marquee was it was a big open space. It allowed students more freedom, more outdoors. If you had daytime events in Rubik's, sometimes you sort of lose reality of what time of day it is. In the marquee, you don't have that element. So for daytime events, it was definitely a more open, airy space. It was also, and I'm sure a lot of students will agree, an amazing place to watch large sports events,
yes.
Which you somewhat lose in Rubik's just because of the way that the club is laid out physically. But something else just to take away as a negative, it was an incredibly energy inefficient space. To run. It uses a huge amount of energy to keep it vaguely warm, so that's something that on the sustainability side it's quite a nice benefit when it is closed.
And actually that's something you're battling with being VP Community, is actually balancing the interests of students but also your team as well. Did you have any struggles with that, Gemma?
Yes, actually, when we were trying to make a decision on Colours Ball years ago, we had a problem with the venue we had for Colours Ball was incredibly inefficient for us, and we had actually our wonderful stage crew at the time expressed a lot of concerns. It was taking them days of hard work to set up these venues in a way that was a lot of work for them, and in a way that wasn't fair to them to have to put that much work into it. And there were people working way more hours than we'd want our staff to be volunteering to be doing. And so we had to make a decision what we were going to do with it, and it wasn't always a popular decision. We moved it to G Live, and we did our best to try and make that transition the best we could for our students and to make sure that everyone could enjoy the event, and that was the point of it. But it's always difficult to balance everybody's happiness across an event, and you can't always please everyone with everything, and you definitely have to make those sorts of decisions when you're a SAB to work out where is that line, and it's a difficult one to make, but
yeah. And obviously once you start something, like for me, I just know that Colours Ball and Union Ball is G Live. I wouldn't even question it. So it's quite difficult from our current students today to our students of 5 years ago who may have had an issue with it. And I think we'll see that more and more with Rubik's. Do you think students are becoming pickier on the nights they're going out?
Oh, I don't know if I can comment anymore. I feel like that's beyond me these days. I don't know, maybe, yeah. Or they're changing or they're shifting. It's difficult to, I think the student population shifts every year. We see it move in different ways and different movements, and it's an incredible population to watch as they sort of shift throughout their times. And I think even when you're a fresher, by the time you leave, you don't even understand what the freshers are going on about yet. So it's just a whole plethora of students, really.
Another thing that VP Community takes a massive steer on is actually leading the local community and representing, I guess, the student union to the local community. For you, Tom, do you think that students feel that Guildford is an inclusive and welcoming place to live?
Yes, yes and no. The University of Surrey is very much a campus university, and that it is a little town in itself. It's got its own bars and clubs and restaurants and post office and shops. However, it sits within Guildford, and there needs to be a battle every year to ingrain with the local community. Particularly we see it with neighbours and living next door and living in residential areas. That's something, but also, like we were talking about earlier, about the getting home from town at night, at the sort of 2 o'clock walk down Walnut Tree Close, you know, it needs to be monitored, and that's where I think a community VP can come in and really make a difference to local residents' lives. And in return, that will look favourably on the university, and it's a self-fulfilling cycle like that. It just helps everyone, really.
Yeah, because quite a lot came out about safety, and I think it reflects, you know, so nicely that Rubik's is such a safe venue, but a lot of our students are choosing to go to town, and, you know, why do you think students are choosing the unsafer option?
It's definitely going to be variety. It's going to be not necessarily wanting to go to the same venue absolutely every single week. And I mean, same as Gemma, I'm a little bit old-fashioned now, but we used to go out maybe 3-4 times a week, in which case you probably don't want to be hitting Rubik's 3 or 4 times a week. You'll try a different bar, or I know some of the clubs and societies as well do bar crawls, bar tours, and all that sort of thing is super fun and super engaging and can work really nicely with the community if it's done properly. But it can, on the flip side, be very damaging if it's done badly. So yeah, needs to be kept on top of.
Definitely. And I've touched a lot on your previous role as VP Community, but you actually have a role now in Campus Services, which reflects very much you might work very closely with the VP Community coming forward. What do you think the top priority for students is in the development of Campus Services?
I think personally, I think cost of living is really starting to hit home for a lot of the students now. And I think in the year going ahead, especially, the maintenance loans are looking like they're going up about 3.8%, which is way below inflation. So I think what we're going to see with campus services is how can we make sure the services are still supporting the students in the right way and are still providing what they need going forward. So we're working with the SU really closely on things like the accommodation and trying to understand the accommodation levels and the pricing behind that. And we try to work really closely with the union on that, and that's what we'd encourage in the year going ahead as well with the VP community. We always like to have that kind of relationship with them to make sure that we understand that, because yeah, I think for everything going forward, cost of living just seems to be the underlying pin for it all. I think we've heard it throughout all of the thread of the debates, you know, when they've said we're struggling for volunteers, realistically it comes back to because they need to work.
Yeah.
It's because of the cost of living, you know, we've seen it sort of thread all the way through, and that's something we're struggling to really try and see how we can make sure we support the students best. So
yeah,
SABs are important for that.
Because actually quite a lot of students are undertaking part-time work now to make sure they can get through university. For you, James, do you think there's something the union can do in order to kind of reflect that shift from volunteering to paid work?
So the university does have a series of schemes where there are paid opportunities to work with the university. For example, we currently have an intern who works with our team, so he's taken a year after he graduated, paid within our team. He actually also works at Rubik's. I think he's upstairs at the moment. So there are some opportunities, but there is a lot of restrictions because the university, would it be better for the broader student population to hire a small number of them, or to put on more services, so somewhere where students can go to socialise but stay warm in the evenings rather than having to have the heating on at home? So there's a balancing act there.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, I think a lot of what's come out tonight is that battle between cost of living, sustainability, student choices, and I think as students have gone on, they've become more, I guess, fussy with where they're spending their time, how they're spending their money, things like that. That's definitely come through. So, question for all of you: what one thing would you change about the university campus? Gemma, for you first.
Oh God. One thing I'd change. I would love to make it more accessible. I think it got brought up right at the very, very start of this whole night.
Yeah.
I think there's so many parts of this campus that are inaccessible, and I have friends that really struggle with going around this campus and colleagues. And the routes we have to take sometimes just to get to places you think should be easy to access, it can be difficult. But it's so difficult because some of those changes, this campus is just so, was built in the 60s at a time when they just didn't pay any attention to any part of accessibility. Yeah. And so trying to make those changes is so difficult and long. But I would love to make it a more accessible campus.
What about you, James?
Energy efficiency, specifically heat. The campus, again, due to the age it was built, was not designed with energy efficiency, retaining heat in mind. It was designed when energy was one of the cheapest things you could buy. It was, oh, we don't need to worry about heating this space, just open the window if it gets too hot at one end or the other end's too cold, so we'll just keep heating that end. And again, it's a very difficult campus to try and address those issues.
And actually, if we were, making us more energy efficient, we'd actually be saving money rather than losing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our energy bill as a university has increased by, I'm not allowed to say the number, but several 100% over the last year. It's over 300% higher than it was when I started in my position.
That's mad. And for you, Tom, what's your one thing you change about university campus?
I think the campus is absolutely beautiful in itself and what it is. It's a very, very good-looking campus. There's 2 buildings that I'm aware of that need to be looked at closely. There's Guildford Court, which is former accommodation, and International House, which is former accommodation. Both, as far as I know, are sitting empty and need to be utilised. They've got to be millions of pounds worth of real estate sitting there, ready to be used for. It doesn't necessarily have to be accommodation. It could be whatever, but they need to be looked into.
And actually, that makes with less accommodation being available, particularly as they are the C's and the D's. They're not your E's and your F's, which are your premium accommodation. But what I found throughout my university time is actually there's been a lot of availability for campus accommodation, particularly for final years, and it's really grateful that I've been offered that as an opportunity. Do you think that campus accommodation is really attractive for final years and postgraduates?
Yeah, and I think especially for this year, we really are. One thing that we will say is, whilst our energy bills are high, they are included as part of your accommodation, actually, and that's a really big cost saving to students, which I don't think they always realise, especially going into your final years. You've got a lot of your life to be spending paying bills and working out where the right energy providers are, and a lot of the second years learn that in their second year, and hopefully with Tom as well. Yeah. But spend your final year when you can, coming into our accommodation and having your final year a bit more rested maybe, and slightly more focused on your degree and getting that final grade. But yeah, there's a lot of accommodation available, and then applications are open at the moment as well for our final year, so we would encourage them to apply and go for it.
Yeah. Something very unusual about Surrey is the ability that you can do that. At most universities, it's for first years, and quite often only if you put it as your firm choice. So the ability to be able to come back and live on accommodation is a big draw for some students.
Something I found very grateful as a final year, because coming out of COVID when I was a final year, I was like, I do not want to be looking for housing right now in a pandemic. Actually being able to apply quite last minute and having that availability of accommodation. So I've got that guaranteed space. I think I'm really grateful for.
Very boringly as well, on campus is a 38-week contract. Off campus, you're likely to get the full year contract. So that's 14 weeks, and during a cost of living crisis, that's a lot of money that students can save just because they've got the shorter contract.
Don't worry, I'm not sponsored by university accommodation. I
we just all love it. We all think it's fabulous.
On the reflective side of that, though, how do you support students with things like energy bills and finding accommodation?
Absolutely. So some students will need to live in Guildford for whatever reason for the full year, whether it's for work or maybe courses that go on for the full year. So it's not necessarily that 38 weeks is the best. And when they do move off campus, we support them absolutely every way we can with sourcing the best energy providers, what best use for their needs, and how to manage energy within their house effectively. Learning to set the timers on the thermostat is such an easy little thing, but if you can teach them early on, it bodes well for the rest of the year. So little things.
Have you found the partnership with the support zone in particular really grateful in terms of that advice that they can provide, but also them signposting?
Yes. So we did, like I mentioned earlier, a series of lectures earlier in the year. Those can cover how to tenant was basically the topic of one of them, which is how to go about heating your home and all the rest of it on the sustainability side. The support side in general is more when things go wrong, because things can go wrong off campus, and how we can pick up the pieces and where you stand legally when things do, unfortunately, sometimes need a bit of working out to get through.
Really essential support provided there. Thank you so much to our pundits of tonight, as well as Oriana and Michael from earlier. Well done to all our candidates. And without further ado, I conclude the first night of Pundits and Surrey Decides question time.